What is up, Earthnoids and Space Noids? I am just a simple new type, and in this episode, we are starting out the UC90s with a bang. This time, we are finally breaking down the return of Johnny Ryden. Last time, we learned that Johnny's relationship with Kycelia and the Zabis were a sham, and he in fact hates the Zabi family. After the war, he was approached by Shin Matsunaga, and the two took care of the ghosts of their past. Shin tells the world that Johnny is dead, but he is in fact still alive. In this episode, we meet Lead Wayline and the Federation Survey Service, an organization responsible for documenting wartime. Lead will begin investigating the mystery that is Johnny Ryden. So let's get into this. Lead Wayline launches in the Full Armor Gundam Type B. Like the Type A, the FA-78-1B Full Armor Gundam Type B is developed to create a new weapon loadout for the RX-78 Gundam. This mobile suit specializes in medium-range bombardment against enemy fleets. Its firepower is vastly increased. The control system and weapons are completely overhauled from Type A. Instead of the twin beam rifle, the Type B had a triple beam rifle mounted on its right arm. On its left arm was a small shield with two integrated beam sabers. The rest of the armor and the 360 rocket cannon mounted on the right side of the backpack were unchanged. Other weapons include 60mm Vulcans, a shoulder 7-tube missile pod, a 360mm rocket cannon, and a large missile launcher. Like other RX-78 Gundams, this also has a core block system and a long-distance optical observation system. His computer picks up two Gelgoog high-mobility types and a Gelgoog cannon. The MS-14C Gelgoog cannon is a modified variant of the Gelgoog made specifically for the Chimera Corps during the One-Year War. It has a specialized head unit, and the cannon is mounted on a B-type backpack. Even with a heavy cannon, this mobile suit retains its mobility. Other weapons include a twin-beam sword, a beam rifle, a 360mm giant bazooka, a 3-tube missile launcher, and much more. The Gelgoog cannon is acting as the commander unit. Rather than handling the Gelgoogs, Lead goes straight for the battleship. Someone on the radio is telling him that he is going off mission. He turns off his radio and goes in to destroy the ship, and then focuses his attention on the Gelgoogs. Similar to the plot to assassinate Giran, we get a point of view of someone looking back at the One-Year War. It wasn't until UC-0089 that many of the hidden events that occurred during the One-Year War started becoming unclassified. AFF created the Federation Survey Service, which helped uncover some of these events. The creation of the Type B Gundam was recently known to the world. The Federation Survey Service, through testing, learned that this unit was designed to pierce directly through the enemy mobile suits and go straight for the battleships. The Federation has yet to officially comment on the existence of this mobile suit. Lead finishes off the Gelgoogs, but one of them comes back to life. It starts reforming and changes blue. The unit starts saying, "Congratulations on your return, Johnny Ryden." The Gelgoog strikes Lead's mobile suit, destroying his unit. Lucky for him, it isn't real life, but rather a simulation. He talks to Rimia and asks if they saw the blue Gelgoog, but no one seems to believe him. He hears the name Johnny Ryden in his head, but he reminds himself that he is Lead Wayline. UC-0079, a team of Zaku first mass production types, heads out towards a Papua-class escorting Gattle. The MS-06A Zaku II first mass production type was put into production after Zeonic found many flaws with the Zaku I. This version has increased armor to better protect the pilot. Remember, the Zaku I is really janky and breaks just by looking at it. This is more or less the standard Zaku II that everyone loves, but the Heat Hawk hasn't been created yet. It has a 105mm machine gun and the initial type bazooka, which will be improved upon in other variants. Gattle surround a Papua class, but the Zakus rush past them. The Gattle is a space fighter bomber used by the Principality of Zeon during the One-Year War and considered the first space combat bomber ever. It could hold 2 pilots and is used mainly for fortress and spaceship defense. The MS-21C Drac from Stardust Memory is designed from the Gattle. It is equipped with 4 30mm Vulcans, a pair of 5-tube missile launchers, and 2 large anti-ship missiles. One soldier named Rubens rushes in with the initial type bazooka and shoots. As he reloads, he pushes too many Gs and drops the bazooka round. Back at the base, he is hit by a superior officer telling him that he has been told thousands of times not to reload in such high acceleration. This is a memory from Rubens himself. UC-0090. Rimia is escorting an older Rubens. He notes that she was a former Zeon member, and her accent is very noticeable. One thing to note is Rimia's father was Roy Greenwood, an elite soldier featured in Gundam Pilot series of biographies, The Brave Soldiers in the Sky. He went missing in action at the end of the One-Year War. Rimia takes Rubens to Lead and the FSS. They show him the old Zaku II first mass production type. FSS notes that in the early days of Zeon, they never considered hand-to-hand combat as a possibility, and thus no need for something like a Heat Hawk. However, the bazooka was intended to be swapped out with something more nuclear. This was before the One-Week War and before the Antarctic Treaty was signed, so Zeon was planning on long-term nuclear capabilities. An existing version of this unit has yet to be confirmed until now. Rubens is nostalgic as he looks inside the A-Type. He informs them that many of the ace pilots of the one-year war grew up on this unit, including Char and the Black Tri-Stars. He says that everyone that used this unit would sign their name on the seat. He points to his codename, Rabbit, and says that this is his signature. Next to it is a fancy A, so I assume that is Char. Also, I want to know who Craig the Joker Pete is. What's this guy's story? Rimia says that they tried to reach out to as many as possible. Rubens asks if he is the only one who responded. Rimia is silent, so we can assume that they are all dead. Rubens said he didn't want to come here and recall his memories of the war. He thinks of the Battle of Solomon and can't put the horrors into words. But he says that he does hold nostalgic feelings as well. He says that you can never meet people you could trust more during a time of great horror. We flash back to Rubens talking to his former commander. He says that a miss can not only get you killed, but also your comrades killed. He says that he hasn't been this calm since the end of the war. Later, Rimia and Led are working on the report on the A-Type Zaku II. Led says he wants to know more information about Johnny Ryden and teases Rimia about the glitch in the simulator. She says that Johnny Ryden is famous. She pulls up a bunch of files that they have on the subject of Johnny Ryden. There happens to be several people claiming the name. This is a great retcon that consolidates Johnny Ryden's character. We get images from Gundam Pilot series of biographies, The Brave Soldiers in the Sky, along with the Battle Chronicle Johnny Ridden. One is a love story between Kycilia and Zabi, while the other shows Johnny's hatred for the Zabi family. So what is the real story exactly? It seems this is the manga where we are going to find that out. A squad of Ashimers fly over an Air Force base. Led, Rimia, and Scott head out to a military base that happens to have a maid cafe for some reason. Also, Scott is a part of the team and has been hanging out in the background. They are there to meet Rimia's contact regarding intel on Johnny Ryden. They meet with Broglie Liger of the Mobile Suit Air Force Company. They have questions regarding his former squad. They show Broglie a picture of the Ball Bomber. The RB-79M Ball Type M, also known as the Ball Bomber, is a variant of the Ball that focuses on placing mines on the battlefield. The low recoil cannon of the original Ball is replaced with a composite sensor. Also, its manipulator arms are shortened to prevent contact with the mines. So how many test pilots blew up learning that they needed to shorten the arms? See, this is the Gundam lore I actually care about. The MMB-0E floating mine is equipped on the unit with 48 mines total. A sensor is deployed around the mines for contact detonation, though remote detonation is possible as well. During the one-year war, EFF was getting desperate to keep up with Zeon's mobile suits. This is when the Ball was created. Although able to break through Zeon forces, many Balls suffered extensive damage, so much so that it was borderline inhumane. This is when EFF created the Ball Bomber. These units were stationed mainly on Luna 2 and would plant bombs on known Zeon routes. This was not only effective in protecting Luna 2, but it also took Balls away from the main action while still being useful. It is said that no Ball Bombers exist anymore. Broglie mentions that when EFF went all out at the end of the one-year war, most of the Ball Bombers were converted back to regular Balls. Rimia asks about the emblem. He says it is related to Johnny Ryden. We learn about the backstory behind the unicorn in our first Johnny Ryden video. Be sure to go check that out as well. We flash back to his squad of Ball Bombers scattering bombs during the one-year war. A Saberfish is destroyed at their 6 o'clock. They think enemies are approaching, but it was a distraction. A gang of Zakus come from behind and destroy their Salamis ships, along with a Columbus class. He notices a red Zaku. The Crimson Lightning himself, Johnny Ryden, attacks them. The balls are completely destroyed, including Broglie's ball, but he is alive, drifting out into space. He says that he will continue to fight no matter what. Johnny Ryden sees Broglie's fearlessness. He says from this day forward, he is worthy of the Ryden emblem. It's worn by warriors who never yield. He says to wear it so he knows who he is. If they ever meet again in battle, they will have a glorious fight. He leaves Broglie alive. From that moment forward, Broglie began using the symbol, and it became the coat of arms for his company. He never did meet Johnny Ryden again, however. Led remembers the simulation with the blue Gelgoog. As the team leaves, Broglie says that he welcomes their return with a huge smile. Jacobius Node is waiting to meet with Oxner Cliff. When he enters, he informs him that they may be put to work in Luna 2. Also, someone has intercepted some simulator data and wants them to go check it out. Jacobius says that he is a dog, but he is a hunting dog and one who wants to pay his debts back. Oxner tells him about the others who are investigating Johnny Ryden candidates. He pulls out data most likely acquired from FSS, which shows they already knocked a few candidates off the list. As he leaves the room, Oxner's assistant wonders why he he didn't tell Jacobius. He says that dogs don't need to know that kind of thing. Ooh, ominous. Led, Rimia, and Brandon are complaining about the desert heat. They are waiting for their new subject that Led is going to study. A gunperry comes in from the distance. Led didn't know gunperries were still in use. They are taken to their subject matter for the next 2 weeks. The MS-06G Zaku II High Mobility Ground Type. We have been talking about this unit a lot recently. Go check out our video of the Noisy Fairy Squad where we talk about Alma's custom variant of this unit. We already know that this unit was a weird Zaku variant that was created before the goof went into production. But one thing we learn about this unit in the FSS data file is that Zeon engineers were able to apply assisting vernier thrusters to the legs and thus got an even higher output. All except for one beaten down version was found. It was fixed up, and FSS's job is to test this last remaining variant. Suddenly, they get a red alert. From their 12 o'clock, a bunch of bandits are coming their way to attack, most likely to steal supplies. They are made up of a bunch of rogue soldiers that went AWOL with their mobile suits to form a mob. EFF suggests that they evacuate, but they can't leave the last working Type G unit here. Rimia tells Led to get into the unit. He complains about not being good at Zeon mobile suits. The battle wages on. In the distance happens to be Jacobius, who is watching. He is using the bandits as a distraction. His units are using GM Quells. The RGM-79Q GM Quell is a mass-produced general-purpose mobile suit, originally intended to be used by the Titans. If you remember the end of 0083 Stardust Memory, the Titans are formed and they are given this unit. This unit uses the RGM-79N GM Custom as a base. It has a simplified design and lighter armor. It also has improved sensors for communication. Due to the increased funding by the Titans, the GM Quell also gained the option of being armed with a beam rifle. Other weapons include 60mm Vulcans, an eye-field beam saber, the option to use the 90mm GM rifle, a 90mm bullet machine gun, and many other GM weapons. This GM will go on to be the basis for the Gundam Mark II. Back at the base, Led gets into the Zaku. Rimia tells him to skip to step 235 in the test procedure. We don't got time for basics. He begins startup procedures. Rimia is running tests as well when she accidentally kicks a Zeon-branded Hato. We cut to Oxner, who brings up Adenauer's name. This is Quest's father and Vice Foreign Minister of Earth. Back in the Zaku II, out of the chaos comes the blue Gelgoog. Led notes that this is the same Gelgoog he saw in the simulator. Jacobius is watching on and knows that the pilot is someone named Uma. This is the Uma Lightning Custom. The MS-14B Gelgoog Uma Lightning Custom is a customized high-mobility type Gelgoog modified exclusively for Uma Lightning. The head unit is different from the regular Gelgoog, and its high-mobility backpack has also been improved. It has tanks on the legs like the Gelgoog cannon to extend operating time. It also has a magnetic coating and uses Gundarium alloy. It is equipped with the twin beam sword, a beam rifle, a triple missile pod, a 360 giant bazooka, a shield, a twin beam spear, and a 6.6 megawatt output beam rifle called the Redayin rifle. More on Uma soon. The Gelgoog uses its chonky thrusters to hover as if it were a Dom. Led's machine guns run out of ammo real quick. He drops the gun and runs for a Magella top cannon left by the bandits. However, he can't use it. The bandits must have modified the fire control system. Remember, when a mobile suit grabs a weapon, it is like a USB drive. It goes through certain protocols to connect the weapon to the mobile suit. Those protocols can be rewritten. He has to switch to manual. The Gelgoog rushes in. The system suddenly connects, and he is able to shoot. As the Gelgoog slices off the Zaku's arm, Led gets a shot off, taking out the Gelgoog's arm as well. Out of nowhere, an Ashimar comes rushing in. The Ashimar is rocking the unicorn emblem. It is Broglie and the 13th MS team. The Ashimar comes in and attacks, and then runs away, over and over again until the Gelgoog retreats on a Dodai Kai. Broglie notes that he wonders why Uma showed up earlier, and that plans are moving faster than expected. Led wonders how he was able to fire the Magella top. Later that night, Rimia also wonders how Led was able to do something so instinctively. She flashes back to him complaining about not being able to pilot Zeon mobile suits. She starts to become suspicious as she looks at the Zeon Hato. Rimia has a conversation with FSS member Scott, which just is a thinly veiled attempt at doing an exposition dump. FSS was formed at the end of the 1-year war under the Weapons Research Committee. Its goal is the research of Federation and Zeon weaponry that was created during this time. The first chairman was Oxner, during which the organization went under a lot of restructuring. The funding comes from the Federation Parliament's budget, but it usually isn't enough and they rely heavily on donations. Scott notes that the Republic of Zeon is a major sponsor to their budget. In this document, we see Jamatov Hyman's name, but more importantly, we see Hoth Feiseler. He is the grandfather of Leo Feiseler, the main protagonist of the plot to assassinate Giran. Go check out our coverage of that manga. It is such a good read. After the war, both the Republic and EFF have vested interest in FSS. We know that Zeon Department of Peace was investigating similar things before they got rolled into FSS when Zeon lost the war. Scott also brings up that their boss, Joel Brocken Hoover, has high expectations of them. Rimia mentions that she never met Hoover. He was a former captain and mobile suit pilot. He is also the one who brought Led onto the team. She goes back to work to find Led and Brandon, who are looking over the Gelgoog data. They talk about the added magnetic coating and note that this is something that is seen on a lot of Federation mobile suits. Even though the Act Zaku also uses magnetic coating, Rimia believes that the Gelgoog was made by the Federation or at least maintained by them. Led wonders, then why use such an old Zeon mobile suit just to add new tech to it? Old tech still has its limitations. She says that it could be that they are using a Gelgoog to send a message. Jacobius steps out of the car to visit FSS. He is ready to have a reunion with Johnny Ryden. Jacobius introduces himself as the president of PMC Themis. He got word that FSS ran into a blue Gelgoog. He tells Rimia that PMC is full of former EFF, Zeon, and Titans, so he gets intel quite fast. He wants intel on their run-in with the blue Gelgoog. However, he wants to give them a gift for helping. He pulls out a picture of the blue Gelgoog. It is traveling by a Zanzibar Kai-class ship, the Chimera. The Zanzibar Kai-class ship, the Chimera, is very similar to the original Zanzibar, but the cargo bay is moved to the rear to allow for more mobile suit capacity. It has its own catapult deck and a residential deck. It is equipped with a 4 megaparticle gun, 2 J missile launch tubes, and a 5 2-barrel anti-craft gun. The ship belonged to the mysterious special forces group, the Chimera Corps. This Zanzibar was made specifically in response to White Base. It was supposed to be a mass-produced upgrade to the Zanzibar, but only 3 were made, 1 going to the Chimera Corps. The others were never used. No one knows the status of this ship. Jacobius wants to exchange data on the Gelgoog for data on the Chimera. Rimia wonders what is his interest in the Chimera Corps. He says that he believes the rumors of the treasure of the Sazabi family are hiding on that ship. He says that the Chimera Corps is composed of the best pilots and commanders. But why would you have the best all in one spot? To help raise overall skills and morale, you would take your best soldiers and disperse them as commanders throughout your ranks to diversify and increase overall skills. So why did Caecilia bring the best under one roof? And why did she do practically nothing with the Chimera Corps? Jacobius believes that their main purpose was most likely to protect the treasure of the Sazabi family. This is all just rumors, of course. Led walks in and has a brief talk with Jacobius. He leaves and tells Oxner that he doesn't believe that Led Wayline is Johnny Ryden. We learn that he is actually a former Chimera Corps member himself. When he hangs up on Oxner, he says that Led Wayline may indeed be Johnny Ryden. He says it is possible he could have changed his looks and voice, but he couldn't change the way he holds himself. That, along with Uma Lightning's interest in him, makes him think that it may be Johnny. Meanwhile, in the Amazon basin, the blue Gelgoog is with a team of Zagok E's. The MSN-07E Zagok E is an experimental version of the Zagok that improves on its rapid-fire power. The missile launchers were also replaced with torpedo launchers. Its limbs are retractable to make it cruise better underwater. It also has a standardized cockpit under the United Maintenance Plan. It has a jetpack that allows the mobile suit to shoot out of the water and onto land. It is also equipped with a vice claw, a pair of forearm beam cannons, and a torpedo launcher. Uma Lightning is looking for the ruins of the old EFF headquarters. New York City. New York? Who translated this? Maybe they were going for a New York accent? Hey, it's New York, I'm walking here. The city is hosting a 10-year anniversary to the 1-year war. At the event are historical mobile suits being exhibited. People are gazing upon the Goof Combined Test Type. The MS-07W Goof Combined Test Type is one of the most unique designs by Zeonic during the 1-year war. After Garma fell and EFF reclaimed California base, they found this one and only unit. This unit has a customized DOP called the Little DOP that is stored in the torso and docks through the back. back. The little DOP functions similar to the core block system of the Gundam. However, this little DOP can't dock with the goof and can only function as an eject pod. It is equipped with a 5-barrel 75mm machine gun, a shield that holds a heat sword, a 300mm giant bazooka, a 30mm 6-barrel machine gun, finger Vulcans, and anti-air missiles on the little DOP. The wiki says that this was a contest and was originally called the Garma Custom Goof. The winner had their design cleaned up by Kuniya Okawada himself, and this is the result. It's unfortunate you probably can't do this today because you'll get overwhelmed with votes of a giant dick robot. This unit, of course, was designed specifically for Garmazabi. At this 10-year anniversary, the Goof will be on display to the public for the first time. A woman handling administrative duties for Oxner Cliff, who is currently running for office. She believes that he should be doing more of a tour while he is here, but he is going to leave it in the hands of Gop and to trust him. If that name sounds familiar, that is because Gop is a former EFF general. He was the one pushing Mirai to join EFF and used her dad to emotionally pressure her into joining the military. After 10 years, Revel is dead, Tiamin is dead, and Jamatov is dead. But Gop still lives. After General Revel returned from being a POW during the Battle of Loom, Gop pushed Revel into signing off on Operation V. He later did give power to Jamatov, however. But during the rise of the Titans and the Ayug, Gop did nothing. He merely bided his time. While everyone fell, he and Gop's followers remained. He says to trust in those old folks that survived the war. His assistant asks, isn't he a survivor as well? He says that he is here by accident. During the 1-year war, Revel went to meet with Degwin to discuss a surrender when Giran fired the solar ray, killing his own father and Revel in the process. Oxner was a survivor of that attack. It was all a blur to him, but he mentions that during the attack, he saw a brief glimpse of the Chimera. As he walks away, he says to leave it in the hands of Jacobius for now. Uma Lightning and his men are trying to find an entrance to Jaburo. They didn't think it would be this big. During the Ayug's infiltration of Jaburo, they found out it was a trap to lure them in and self-destruct the base. Even though a nuke went off, only the command center was affected. Considering Jaburo is a series of underground bases that cover the Amazon basin, most of the base is completely fine, but it has been off limits in an attempt to restore nature in the area. This is the perfect place to hide something. They all split off to see what they could find, but they want to wait for a certain someone to join them. Back at FSS, they are all having a picnic while in the lab. Led is stuffing his face when suddenly JB Hoover, their boss, walks in. Rimia realizes who it is and becomes super polite. However, Led is crass and wonders why he is visiting them. He says it is the smell of something tasty that brought him. They tell their boss about the report on the blue Gelgoog and how they believe it is Federation made. Not only was it made with Gundarium, but also it was made using a crushable structure. This method of engineering can be found in cars and allows damage to break in a controlled manner. Rather than relying on the strength of a singular, hard piece of metal, it purposefully breaks upon impact to disperse energy and protect its internals of the mobile suit. This was Zeon's preferred way of creating armor. Hoover asks Rimia who she thinks could produce something like this. She says if she has to guess, she would assume it is Anaheim Electronics. Led says that even if AE built it, they definitely wouldn't maintain it. Hoover says that there is a way to make this happen. Rimia and Bob get excited. They realize he is talking about shady dealings. I love the idea that Rimia has been waiting her whole life to do something shady. He might be able to help find the supply route which helps get them closer to their lead. Hoover goes on to explain that before the 1-year war, EFF worked in a centralized manner, all being controlled via Jaburo. It wasn't until Zeon's Earth Attack Force came to Earth and the use of the Minosky particles that destroyed their organization and distribution methods. All the armies on Earth became isolated. Led chimes in saying that everyone knows that, but Hoover says he is doing a recap. Yeah, shut up, Led. He is obviously talking to us, the reader, since everyone's communication was cut off. After the war, EFF just assumed swaths of their people just went missing in action. Until proven KIA, they must be assumed MIA. So FSS must look through all of the squads that went MIA and see if they might still exist, or at least pretend to be existing. So much data was lost during Operation British. So imagine a group showing up out of the blue months, maybe years later, claiming to be a missing squad. There aren't any records to prove their existence, essentially. So EFF just reinstates them and throws them back into the system. Rimia wonders how this is possible after 10 years. Hoover explains that with the chaos of the Grips conflict and Neo-Zeon, all of this could be mass confusion to people. Throw in the fact that ships in space don't sink. They drift out into space until it runs into another object. Assuming oxygen and supplies, crews can survive for years. And even so, remember, there's no proof anyways. Hoover asks if they have heard of Quattro Bagina. He tells them a story of a time during the 1 Year War where he resurrected a crew of a cruiser and went back into the Earth's sphere. If you have friends in the higher-ups of EFF, you could get things done, like getting a hold of, say, staff registries. Led wonders if Hoover has always been this shady. He says ever since the 1 Year War, and thanks God for Minovsky particles. One thing Zeon didn't predict when they introduced Minovsky particles was that private parties would get involved. Rimia thinks it would be best to assume that they are a test squad or work in R&D of some sort. So some kind of test unit that went missing during the 1 Year War is a good place to start their search. Rimia wonders if there are any surviving documents they could research. Hoover suggests looking at the FSS archives. I feel like Rimia should have known about the archives. Someone didn't read the employee handbook. Back in Jaburo, Uma is getting attacked by a long-range assault. This is Jacobius in his 1A Gelgoog cannon. The MS-14C 1A Gelgoog cannon is a mass-produced assault mobile suit that is built off of the Gelgoog high mobility type. This unit has increased speed and mobility. It is equipped with a twin beam sword, a beam cannon mounted on its backpack, a 360mm giant bazooka, a beam rifle, a 3-tube missile pod, and a buckler shield. However, in this case, Jacobius has removed the Gelgoog cannon backpack and is using a sniper beam rifle with a 3-kind scope, which is the 3-lens goggle thingy. The sniper rifle requires its own generator, which is being held up by Jacobius's minion and a Zaku. He is able to take out the Zaku II. Uma moves quickly. Jacobius shoots and misses Uma. Uma is quicker than he thought as he moves in and destroys the Zaku holding the generator. They take out their beam sabers and begin fighting. Uma taunts him, stating that he never would have thought that the #1 sniper of the Chimera Corps would miss so easily. He also essentially calls him a bootlicker to the president. Uma wants Jacobius to tell him where Minarete is. He says that he must honor the pact. Jacobius says to walk away and he will pretend he was never here. He says that times have changed, but Uma tells him that power turns people into tyrants. Uma continues yelling about the pact they made. They were meant to bring balance. Jacobius states that he is bringing balance by helping Oxner stay in power. Uma says this is foolish. Oh, also lightning is striking down. Maybe it's like a metaphor for Uma, like, Even though he teases him, Jacobius says he turned into a great man. Out in the distance, surveillance cameras are watching over the battle between the two Gelgoogs as rain begins pouring down. Somewhere else, a mysterious man and woman are monitoring the area. They believe that the Minarete is located at Jaburo. One of the soldiers refers to the mysterious woman as Johnny Ryden. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Gop is looking out at the rain, knowing it is raining on Jaburo. It's a metaphor. A woman going by the name of Johnny Ryden is monitoring the fight against Jacobius and Uma. She tells her men to have a Garuda-class ship flying above them fire down on the two's coordinates. Before she leaves, she tells the man to tell Gop that if they give her a boring mission again, she is going to put a foot in their ass. Jacobius gets a missile alert. Uma yells at him, but Jacobius says the missiles isn't him. One of Jacobius's men tell him about the Garuda flying above them. He realizes that someone else besides Uma is stalking him. He makes his escape during the chaos. The Minarete seems to be too big to move without people noticing. He wonders how Oxner is going to handle the situation. Uma and his remaining men head out into space and let the rest of the team know that he is certain Minarete is at Jaburo. Meanwhile, inside 5, a ship in the San Domingo and a squad of GMs are taking care of some Neo-Zeon remnants. Suddenly, a group of 3 Gelgoogs come in and destroy both the GMs and the San Domingo. They have the markings of the Chimera Corps. One of the pilot's Siemens goes on a rant about how baking is an honorable profession. Emma is his wife, and Cristobal wonders if destroying too many fleets inside 5 will bring attention to them. Emma thinks Uma saw Johnny Ryden while on Earth, but she thinks that he is dead. They all agree that he died when they began working with Oxner. Meanwhile, at FSS, Led is bored and waiting for his next investigation. At Earth Federation's 72nd Experimental Test Area, a young girl is wandering around. Rimia asks Bob where Led is. Of course, he is taking a break. She goes over the data as she is excited to test something that was supposed to be a part of Operation V. They are testing the Core Booster Plan 4. The FFX-7BST Plan 4 Core Booster Plan 4 is a prototype fighter and one of the test beds for the Core Booster concept. It has atmospheric and spaceflight capabilities. The core block system was deemed to be too expensive to mass produce, but they wanted to do something with the core fighter. The Core Booster is a result of that. This is a core fighter with a giant booster attached to it. The unit is equipped with 2 25mm Vulcans, 4 micro missiles, 25mm machine guns which function with the Vulcans to increase firepower, and a 2 megaparticle cannon. cannon. This will eventually be designed into the core booster that we know and love. The core block system was expensive and contained the fancy new learning computer for the time. Also, EFF is really cheap and needed to recoup the cost somehow. Rimia looks up and sees a piece of debris fall to Earth. During the 1 Year War, there is an absurd amount of junk around the Earth's sphere. Sometimes giant pieces of debris enter Earth's atmosphere. There are defense systems in place that will shoot it down if it calculates that it will hit civilians. In this case, it hits the desert and no action was taken. Rimia asks Bob what he was doing during the 1 Year War. He was in college. Rimia was still just a little kid, but she says that it certainly did change her world. Little by little, her friends and their family began disappearing. They evacuated or were considered enemies of the state. Her school lesson became more and more about history that suggests the Federation are the bad guys. Her father joined the front lines, and she ended up at a boarding school with her sister. On the last day of the war, an air siren went off on Side 3. Go check out our coverage of the plot to assassinate Giran to see why. After the war, their dad was declared missing in action. She ended up with a foster family and moved forward in life, but she still wonders what was the monster called the 1 Year War. That is when Led walks in wondering what they're talking about. He refers to himself as an ace pilot, and Rimia gives him a look. He says that he isn't Johnny Ryden. He's been noticing those looks that she's been giving him. Led asks when the core booster will be ready to fly. She says the day after tomorrow. Led is bored just waiting around. The mysterious girl looks on. She says her mobile suit is almost ready. Led says that this core fighter, at its heart, was designed to keep someone alive. Amado Ray should probably thank surviving the 1 Year War to the fact that this core fighter exists. It is also the reason why this project costs so much money. He says that the core fighter is someone trying to find light in the darkness. As long as people like this exist, man can take on any monster, even one such as the 1 Year War. Rimia realizes that Led was listening to her conversation. He tells her to shut up out of embarrassment. The team performs some pre-checks. Led is in the cockpit. He asks Rimia why is the unit red. She says that during the Great War, there was a red unit called the Red Baron who painted their plane red to bring them glory. He reminds her he is not Johnny Ryden. Led takes off. While running tests, the command center loses contact. Minovsky density is high and laser comms are being blocked, but they saw a fast object approaching Led before communication went down. Led dodges some missiles. A red gaplant approaches him, rocking the unicorn emblem. The gaplant pilot introduces herself as Johnny Ryden. She always wanted to meet him. After continuously telling Rimia he isn't Johnny Ryden, another person comes in claiming that Led is Johnny. Good luck explaining that to Rimia. He is able to outmaneuver her mobile suit. He drops below the clouds and establishes a connection with Rimia. He asks her to collect all the weather data in a 200-kilometer radius. He also informs her of the red gaplant. This makes Rimia think of the Xeon-branded Hotto that she found. Johnny Ryden wants to know if Johnny Ryden is Johnny Ryden, because if he is Johnny Ryden, then Johnny Ryden isn't Johnny Ryden. What? Led is also confused. She tells Led about a beast that lost its master during the 1 Year War with power and intelligence. A man comes in and gives the power of the beast to his friends. Led wonders what this story has to do with anything. She says that Johnny wouldn't say something like that, but Led thought that she was fighting Johnny and is still confused. He says that she should run back to her parents. Led uses the boosters, but the gaplant is able to keep pace. Rimia is going to be mad at Led for what he does next. He ejects the core booster from the core fighter and it crashes directly into the gaplant. She also happens to shoot off her beam cannon, clipping part of the core fighter. The core fighter is down. The gaplant can no longer transform and is also going down. Led crash lands into somewhere around an environmental improvement plant. He knows that Rimia is going to be very pissed and kinda doesn't want to go back to FSS now. Led notes that everything on Earth sure does always look pristine. Artificial improvement plants are artificial islands designed to help the Earth heal after the damage of the 1 Year War. These islands can absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen into the atmosphere. Meanwhile, the girl calling herself Johnny Ryden also crash lands. She grabs a bug-out bag and a distress signal, but she stops and wonders if she should use this opportunity to get away from Old Man Gop. She is mad that she doesn't even know her real name. Bob tells Rimia about the improvement plants and how many were destroyed during the colony drop. They pick up a distress signal and the rescue team heads out. Rimia decides to join them. Gop was informed that the girl was shot down. They refer to her as Ingrid 0. He tells his men to get a Garuda ready for him. He then contacts a Brigadier General Mishima requesting his strength to help retrieve Ingrid 0. He informs them that there may be an enemy involved, and it may be Chimera. Uma Lightning and his men are testing a beam rifle. They are pretending to be a test squad while at Jaburo, and the fight with Jacobius has already raised suspicion. They suddenly get a call and are informed that Johnny Ryden has been shot down. Uma says screw it and decides to go out and try to rescue Ryden, even though he just told his men not to act suspicious. He says if they have to, they will just give Anaheim a call. At Themis, Jacobius is handling some paperwork. One of his men comes in and catches him up on the situation. He is informed that Led and Ingrid Zero are shut down and that Gop has started to make moves to retrieve the two. They're still unsure of Uma's moves in all of this. He says to get a squad moving as well. He will move out if he has to. Oxner is also being caught up. He also knows of Themis's movements. He is playing with a Rubik's Cube. They say their concern should be with Rimia. More specifically, the Hado that Rimia is trying to access. It happens to contain leaked data that Oxner doesn't want getting out. She says deal with the owner of the Hado as she chooses. Oxner finishes the Rubik's Cube, forming a unicorn. He says this is a 4-way battle. He places it next to 3 other cubes. A Chimera, a Cerberus, and a Snake. Both Uma Lightning and Jacobius also make their way towards Led and Ingrid Zero. FSS loads up a G-Fighter assault landing type. More on this unit next video. Rimia joins the team, very worried about Led. Unlike Zeon, EFF wanted to focus on general-purpose mobile suits, one good enough for various missions. With this came the concept of the core block system. This allowed the pilot to change its parts based on the needs of the battle. However, the core block system turned out to be quite expensive. On top of that, this was a time when Zeon took over many of EFF's base during the second landing operation. Resources were limited, so they scrapped the core block system. The research continued, most likely Revel's doing, with the help of his post-war sympathizers, because, he's dead. 2 trends typically happen for multi-purpose mobile combat. Based on the team's needs, they would add additional support and firepower. This comes your GM customs, your GM cannons, your GM snipers, etc. The other scenario are multi-purpose support mechanisms designed to support the mobile suit. The G-Fighter is a good example of this. After the war, they started giving support mechanisms a second chance on small missions. The new support systems are called the G-Fighter Assault Landing Type. The G-Fighter Assault Landing Type is a variant of the G-Fighter support system. This version is designed as a troop carrier and remains in service. The beam cannons are replaced with rocket launchers, and it still retains its caterpillar treads. It can hold 30 men as well as bunker busters. It is equipped with a rocket launcher, Vulcans, and bunker buster bombs. One EFF commander begins running the operation. He tells his men to contact the special task force group, the Night Jaegers, but is cavalier about it. Uma Lightning is fighting out in the debris when a Magellan comes in. It is getting hectic, but he is saved by a Zanzibar Kai, also known as the Chimera. It is the Chimera Core. One of the mobile suits is the Gelgoog High Mobility R-Type. The MS-14BR Gelgoog High Mobility R-Type, known as the Abawaku type, is a variant with improved speed and mobility. Extra thrusters are added to the legs similar to the MS-06R, which was considered a Gelgoog before the Gelgoog. The extra thrusters without additional propellant wouldn't work for an average pilot. But for the ace pilots of the Chimera Core, this isn't a problem. On its back is the 360 bulb-up rocket cannon, which is magazine-fed. It is also equipped with a twin-beam sword, a beam rifle, a 3-tube missile launcher, and a shield. He suddenly wakes up. It was a dream. They're underwater in Jukon-class subs. His men will go out in Zagox, while he goes out in his Gelgoog. His subordinate wonders why Uma uses that old Gelgoog. He says it has to be a Gelgoog, or Johnny won't understand. Led is wandering around the forest being grumpy. Last time his core fighter went down while fighting little Johnny Ryden. He remembers Jacobius mentioned something about a treasure and wondered what that could mean. He is currently in an environmental improvement block and stumbles upon a map. Little Johnny holds a gun to his back. EFF soldiers have found Ingrid Zero's gaplant, but they don't have an eye on her. They suddenly get a report that Minovsky particle density is at battle levels. The Zagok team heads out while Uma gets a good stretch in while on standby. EFF is awaiting that blue mobile suit. The commander knows that they are after the Minarete. He is informed of the retrieval the core fighter Plan 4 and the gaplant and blames Gop for stressing him out. Rimia and Bob head in for retrieval, but they will have to instantly retreat if they run into trouble as they are only in a fan. Kid Johnny asks Led if he remembers the mutiny. Led keeps telling her that he is not Johnny Ryden. She says that her memories that make her Johnny Ryden recognize him as Johnny Ryden. He says that he is Led Wayline from Ohio, America. And no one lies about being from Ohio, so you know he has to be telling the truth. Got him, Ohio. Sucks to be you. She says that her father is Old Man Gop, and Led realizes she is talking about the Congress chairman. She says he is like a foster father to her. That is when she senses something and tells Led to get back. They hide and find EFF soldiers closing in on their location. infiltration. They are too early. She wanted more time to talk to Led. While she plots, Led realizes that little Johnny is probably a cyber new type. She wants more time to talk, so Led helps by taking out a bazooka and blowing up the closest G-Fighter assault landing type. Led picks up little Johnny and bails. The EFF commander is informed that Led captured Ingrid 0. They wonder if FSS is working with Chimera for some reason. Things are getting a little complicated. Look at the way this man's sideburns connects to his mustache. You know he stopped caring a while ago. He wants an update on the Night Jaeger team. Meanwhile, the Night Jaeger team is unloading a GM Nightseeker. More on this soon. A Commander Vasuki is informed of the mobile suit's arrival. It just so happens to be Yazan Gable. The G-Fighters begin attacking the Zagok's team. They're almost out of fuel and will need to pull back soon. He puts the Night Jaegers on standby and goes to consult with Chairman Gop. Little Johnny is on the ground yelling at the G-Fighters and shooting at them with a pistol. Led tells her to get down when a Zagok passes by. Little Johnny begins brushing her hair and tells Led that they are trying to pick her up, and Uma and his team are trying to pick up Led. But if their objectives do not cross over with one another, why are they fighting? There is a bunker close by. Too many bombs are dropping. They need to get underground. The EFF commander talks to Gop. He gives them permission to use the bunker busters. It can't be helped, but they aren't happy about destroying whatever this Minarete is. But it must be done. Gop's words are, whatever happens, Earth has no future. The plants are unnecessary. Cristobal and Emma are heading to Sweetwater undercover while Simmons stays behind. Bob and Rimia stick to the coastlines and land their Fan-Fan. Rimia wonders if this has anything to do with Johnny Ryden. It's the name of the manga. Led and Little Johnny head down to the sewage system. He gives her his helmet and tells her to put it on. Led asks if she is a cyber new type. He says that there may be airborne or biological things that may kill her by design. The further they go down into the environmental improvement block. She puts on the helmet and the two look for the plant control system. The battle continues above them. The G-Fighters are at their limits. They have to pull back and send out the Night Jaegers. They launch in the Gunperry Sturm type. The CB X5 SGT Assault Type Gunperry, also known as the Gunperry Sturm type, is a VTOL transport vehicle. This variant has bigger containers and has an extensive array of sensors designed to function under high Minovsky particle dispersion. This allows the team to get a read on any situation on the ground before ever making decisions to launch mobile suits and support vehicles. These were produced late into the one-year war and designed mainly for night missions, and use similar tactics seen during World War II. They head to the location. Vasuki, aka Yazan, will drop down in GM Nightseekers while the Gunperrys run recon from above. Underground, Little Johnny can sense that something scary is coming. The Zagok team notices a spike in Minovsky particle density. Uma Lightning finally launches. Yazan and his Nightseekers drop. The RGM-79V GM Nightseeker is a GM variant that focuses on night attacks. It doesn't have a parachute like the ground Gundam. Rather, it has extra thrusters on its back and chest. This allows the unit to drop down faster without getting noticed. However, don't use them under 400 meters or you will die. The face guard visor gives the mobile suit increased sensors for seeing at night. It is equipped with 60mm Vulcans, a beam saber, and a beam spray gun. It could also use a beam javelin, a bullet machine gun, a 100mm machine gun, and a hyper bazooka. It also has some type of electric whip weapon that I have no data on. Yazan is very quick as he drops with his men with crates containing weapons catered to each teammate. He sets a perimeter and instantly goes into action. The commander is informed of the Nightseeker's landing. He decides to have the team assigned to the core fighter to join the search for Ingrid. He wants to make people work for him during this mission. We get a Looney Tunes moment where Johnny asks for a detonator and plastic explosives, and then wonders why Little Johnny has these things on her possession. They blow the door. He tells Little Johnny that this place is unmanned and only receives maintenance every 6 months. The Zagoks run into Yazan. He doesn't hesitate and takes out one instantly. He says that it isn't superior to the Hammurabi from back in the day, but he really loves this gem. He goes to attack the remaining Zagok. As Yazan steps on the mobile suit, he calls out for the mythical beast. Suddenly, Uma Lightning appears. The two engage in beam saber combat. Yazan mentions that Earth still makes him tough. Led and Little Johnny make it to the control center. He tells Little Johnny if she helps him with the controls, he will tell her anything she wants. Rimia reads the audio from the black box of the downed core fighter. He went off on his own. She says that he didn't activate his beacon, which means that he thought the enemy was close by. She pulls out a map and tries to figure out what this idiot Led would do next. Meanwhile, PMC Themis makes their way to the location as well. They come in Dops, Aga, and various other fighters. Jacobius sends Luggins ahead to run intel. The battle continues. Yazan notes that his enemy can read his moves. Uma uses his twin beam sword. He tells his men to move to the extraction point. Yazan notes that his Gelgoog is Federation made. He's very perceptive. Led says she could ask a question, but little Johnny thinks that their meeting is almost over. He wonders how she knows. She says perhaps it is because she is a cyber new type. We flash back to the 1-year war. Ingrid is working with Zeon during the 1-year war as a clone. One man from the Chimera Corps seems to comfort her. He tells her that she is a real human when she says she isn't. An emergency happens involving Uma. She wants to go out, but the man tells her to stay back. Her time to shine will be soon. He says stubborn ones will only get done in. As he leaves, she calls out the man's name, Johnny Ryden. She's angry and snaps out of her flashback. She throws something at Led and says she never came back. She calms down and then simply asks about his background. He tells her that he is Led from Earth. He fought in the Battle of Abawaku as a GM pilot. Little Johnny says once she gets a hold of that thing, she will know for sure. Led says stubborn ones will only get done in, just like Johnny in her flashback. Led begins teasing her, and she decides to kick him right in the butthole. Ruthless, she didn't even go for the cheek. Up above, Yazan changes his strategy. He pushes Uma back into the bog. The Zagok pilot said to watch out for the bog earlier, but Uma was on the second team and didn't get the memo. As he is trapped in the bog, Yazan breaks his twin beam blade and uses his electric whip weapon and immobilizes the Gelgoog. Yazan is proud of himself when suddenly the gun parry goes down. He wonders what the hell just happened. Before we start, I want to mention that many of you noted that Yazan's electric whip on the GM Nightseeker is the Sea Serpent, which was found on Yazan's Hammurabi as well. The tip of the weapon has its own vernier thrusters to help control the trajectory. A beam blast almost hits Yazan and his Nightseeker. The Night Jaeger's Luggin looks out to see Jacobius and his Gelgoog cannon on top of the PMC Themis Gao. The sentence is so weird out of context, I might have to put it on a t-shirt. Coming soon, Jacobius wonders if Yazan is a new type, as he was able to dodge. He patches himself through to EFF base where Commander Beardman tells Mustache Man to stand down and that they are interfering in classified operations. Jacobius says ditto bro. Beardman says that they have direct orders from GOP and to leave, but so does he. He asks, at all cost? And Jacobius says, at all cost, and disconnects. Beardman puts a request through to GOP. Jacobius and his men target Uma Lightning's last known signal. He suggests the testing buffoons pull out as well. The assault-type gun parry has been shot down, and little Johnny takes note. She wants to head out and takes some flares with her. She barely asked any of her questions, but she says she thinks she knows who Led truly is. As she heads out, Led says, cool I guess, see you later, ? Rimia and Bob are in the middle of the battlefield. They notice a GM Quell and PMC Themis. The two head back to the shoreline as a battle is most likely about to break out. Oxner Cliff contacts Jacobius and tells him and his men to pull back. They can't afford to lose neither PMC Themis as a client nor their new Night Jaeger team. These orders are coming directly from GOP. Jacobius asks if they could at least try to pull out Uma Lightning, but they lost his signal and don't know his location. They have to pull out. Oxner makes him feel better by saying that he is too important to lose. Oxner's assistant gives him information regarding potential Zeon remnants garnering support in the colony of Sweetwater. Jacobius contacts one of his men to contact FSS and start writing up a contract quickly. He is trying to force a reason to stay in the plant without going against his contracts. Loophole! He blames Uma as this is going to cause PMC Themis a huge loss in profits. Jacobius knows that Led is missing in the restoration plant, but one of his men also informs him that Rimia and Bob are also a part of the rescue. He can't catch a break. He sends their photos to his men to try to find the FSS members. His gal and fat uncles drop down as PMC spreads out. On the ground, Rimia and Bob are trying to get the Lead when little Johnny pops her head out of a hatch. She goes, hey, you must be the other FSS members. 1 second. She whips out a flare gun and fires it off twice with 2 different colors. Then she just disappears back into the hatch. Rimia and Bob are so confused. Jacobius and his men spot the flare and they move in on the location. Meanwhile, Uma is roasting in his Gelgoog. Led notices the fire in the plant control room and wonders what he could do from his location. Jacobius finds Rimia and tells her that he is here to help them, but he doesn't want his help as the Airborne Division is assisting them. FSS was informed that the Airborne Division is currently after a blue Gelgoog, but they are in fact after the pilot of a red gaplant. They have been caught up helping the enemy. If they run across Led, it is safe to assume they will kill him. Jacobius wants to help, but they have to sign this contract for them to move forward. Rimia asks how can she be be certain he won't double-cross them. He says he gives his word as a member of the Chimera Corps. Not only did he reveal that he is a Chimera Corps member to FSS, a Fedi department investigating the past, but it also shows he can indeed put his money where his mouth is. She signs the document and orders PMC Themis to rescue Led. Jacobius has the green light to engage in battle against the Night Jaegers and the Airborne Division. Little Johnny notes that Mustache Man is on the battlefield. That's her words this time, not mine. The G-Fighter went back to refuel, but they will soon return. Yazan tells his team to engage against the friendlies. Led Wayline's core fighter was retrieved. Some mechanics tried to retrieve his battle data. EFF also saw the flare. Now that the G-Fighters are back on the battlefield, they can make their pursuit. The Airborne Division spots Ingrid 0, but the closest ground forces will take 15 minutes to get to her. He suggests using bunker busters on the plant to buy them some time. This, of course, will destroy the restoration plant. Bearded Man will deal with the consequences later. Bearded Man is mad that Mustache Man has a better mustache than him. He wonders what Jacobius is trying to get at. Emma and Siemens of this new Chimera Corps went out on a spy mission. Cristobal receives a coded transmission from Side 3. They open it to find an image of Char Aznable meeting with Horst Harness. They plan on linking up with two people named Meyer and Granum. Beauty Man and the Airborne Division launches bunker busters. Jacobius notices an explosion causing a fire to burn near the downed Gelgoog. He thinks that if they are willing to destroy the restoration plant, then that means that the enemy has achieved their objective. Meanwhile, a random EFF ensign, I think, pays off the technicians who extracted Led's battle data. He pays them with cash and says that that is rare these days, which leads me to ask, what is the standard currency in Universal Century? It is still a mystery to me. I bet it's crypto. Led is trying to turn on the sprinkler system to help with the fires when an emergency alert goes off. It seems that emergency mode has kicked in, which is what Led wanted. Uma and his Gelgoog is right in the middle of the fire. Jacobius orders his men to bring fire extinguishers, but it will take 2 hours. He has to think of an idea quickly. Led can't believe that they would destroy this restoration plant, as it will be a devastating blow to the Earth's ecosystem. But Led says, oh well, the damage is done. He grabs a giant hammer and smashes a door. He grabs a normal suit and possibly an axe. It is weird art direction. One moment he has a hammer, then the next it's an axe. I feel like the artist drew an axe and he forgot that he previously drew a hammer. Just kind of went with it. I noticed. The alarms go off outside, and the sprinklers finally go off. Jacobius notes that the water will create fog, and they can use it to their advantage. Fog, mixed with Minovsky particle disruption, is a friendly fire nightmare. The Airborne Division and PMC Themis pull back. A gunperry comes in to save little Johnny. Uma passes out as the fire is getting the best of him. He mumbles the name Aisha. Led finally makes it out from underground to see little Johnny being taken away. She yells out to him, Jaburo. He takes his axe and makes his way towards Uma's Gelgoog. The ensign gives the battle data on Led Wayline to Gop. He then gets a call from Oxner, who knows he has the data and would like it for himself. Led takes some photos before trying to open the hatch. He notes that electrical damage was done to his suit. This was caused by the sea serpent. Minovsky particle density has dropped, but Led still hasn't contacted Rimia. She is starting to get annoyed. Jacobius wants Rimia to join him on approaching the blue Gelgoog. Rimia says, can Bob join? Poor Bob. Everyone forgets him. On Sweetwater, Simmons and Emma have been waiting for some movement. They take this lull as an opportunity to enjoy some time together, as they haven't had a chance to have a honeymoon. That is when Simmons gets a message from Horst Harness. So much for relaxing. Led tries to open the hatch, but it is opened by Uma, who points a gun at Led. He calls Led Johnny and then passes out. Specifically, he is mad he pointed a gun at Johnny again. Jacobius, Bob, and Rimia also make it to their location. We flash back to the 1-year war. Similar to what just happened in the present. Uma opens his hatch and shoots Johnny, not realizing that it is him. Johnny says, take care of Ingrid. Back in the present, Led looks over Uma's body. At the Strategy and Tactics Research Center, Gop shows Ingrid 0 the telemetry data of Led Wayline. He was also able to get his hands on old battle data from Johnny Ryden. Reflexes are subconscious behaviors. So too is one's voice pattern and even one's pattern of attack. All these are easily quantifiable in Universal Century. Gop reveals that Johnny Ryden and Led Wayline's battle data are the same. Ingrid wonders why everyone is after Johnny Ryden. Gop says it is because of the Minarete, and he believes that it is key for humanity's survival. PMC Themis had no authority to take Uma Lightning and let FSS handle him. Besides, Jacobius wants to see what happens when Led and Uma meet. Led tells Rimia that he is going to tell her sister about the incident at the plant. She says that he better not. Led goes, "Ha! Joke's on you. I lied and I already told her." Jacobius comes by as Led and Rimia argue. He wants to tell them the fairy tale of the mythical beast. Led is intrigued and wants to hear it. During the late stages of the One-Year War, the Mobile Assault Force formed. Now in UC-90, the public knows 4 things. It was under command of Kycilia Zabi. It consisted of top aces from other units. Their flagship was a Zanzibar-class ship, and they all vanished after the Battle of Abawaku, and any intention behind the formation of this group is completely unknown. After the war, Fedis occupied their former base, Granada, and found a few interesting documents. Jacobius' testimony that he is about to give is the first records of Chimera Corps, but it will have to be labeled top secret for now. FSS records Jacobius' testimony. He was recruited to the Chimera Corps during their second recruitment phase. He was originally under Garma Zabi's command. After his death, he was transferred to Odessa and eventually went up into space. He says this so nonchalantly. If you are Zeon and you survived Odessa, kudos. He was then Bakuve's escort, which is when he received a recruitment letter for the Chimera Corps. It technically isn't a battalion by typical means. It was actually beyond a battalion, with enough engineers, support roles, and of course pilots. It was broken into 4 units. The ace pilot unit was at the center of the battalion, then the support team, followed by the escort team, and lastly, the engineering support team, known as Hydra. Even though the pilots were at the center, Hydra was the heart of Chimera. This was composed of top engineers from Zionic, Zimad, and MIP, the big 3 Xeon players in mobile suits. This birthed the Principality of Xeon, MS Variation Group, which EFF referred to as the first-gen MSV group. They were responsible for the Gelgoog and all its variations. And ultimately, if you haven't figured it out by now, this entire manga is kind of a love letter to the mobile suit variations of the One-Year War. Soon, the Battle of Abawaku took place. Half the forces escaped, while the other half fought in the battle, never to be seen again. The remaining fleet were split and began fighting, only to be caught by Cliff Oxner's units from Luna 2. They surrendered. However, they escaped imprisonment in exchange for all their data and equipment. The formation of the Corps was done by Captain Kelvine, the Mobile Assault Force Intelligence Chairman. He wanted to create an anti-new type unit created of old types. Char joined Kycilia at the end of the war. Jacobius doesn't know the details at the time, but we know that Kycilia knows that Char is Casval Rim Daikun. Of course, in UC-90, everyone now knows this. In a time of divide between Kycilia and Girin, which direction would Casval take? Would he rally new types against Xeon, or would he create a third party? This was a fear amongst many, as during this time, new types were seen as mere weapons of war. That is where the Chimera Corps comes in. They developed tactics and strategies for fighting new types. Early members of Chimera were also the first candidates used for cyber new type testing. Ingrid Zero and Uma Lightning were among the first guinea pigs. This was Chimera Corps' true intention. The camera cuts out. Led doesn't know what to think of Jacobius' testimony. He gave the testimony in the hopes that FSS will stop investigating Johnny Ryden. Rimia, as an engineer, is curious about what Hydra is. They move on to their next job, the design development supporting system. When making a mobile suit, it consists of tens of thousands of manufacturing parts. Communication between different departments and different contractors all became a logistical nightmare. This brings prices up. Similarly, in the real world, this is why the cost of the F-22 is high, as a part of that machine and the manufacturing pipeline is built in literally every state by different contractors. So what they did is create a database collection of every single manufacturing part via CAD and CAM system. This will allow individual engineering teams to cross-reference all of the parts needed for a new design, and then they can eventually fabricate it in-house using a giant 3D printer. They print and build a new mobile suit, and use that data to feed back into the system to provide better suggestion algorithms. After the One-Year War, EFF and eventually Anaheim Electronics got their hands on it, and it revolutionized manufacturing of mobile suits. It essentially gives a high school student the power to build mobile workers with ease. But most importantly, this allowed for the mobile suit variation boom. From snipers to high mobility units, mobile suits can now be easily modified for certain environments. All documents of the system were destroyed, and the Federation and Anaheim Electronics Electronics made it all proprietary and said screw the people and screw open source, this is ours. No one has fully disclosed this system to the public. Led isn't really interested in Hydra, as he is more the piloting type. Rimia teases him about being called Johnny Ryden. He gets mad and offers her to meet his mother to prove it. Rimia gets embarrassed as meeting a parent is an intimate act. She stomps on Led's foot when the elevator opens. They are going to visit Uma Lightning in the hospital. He wakes up and the first thing he says to Led is Johnny Ryden. Led punches him in the face. Rimia asks why he thinks that Led is Johnny. He says that besides the eyes and the hair, he doesn't actually look like Johnny. It was his fighting style that makes him believe he is Johnny. It was also Broglie's judgment, he says. Broglie was the ball pilot we talked about in one of the first videos in this series. He indirectly puts out data about Johnny Ryden, so they will contact him and then he judges if Johnny Ryden is among them. It seems that the story Broglie told Rimia and Led was a lie. Uma tells him that the story is actually true, but he wasn't an EFF pilot. He was a Chimera, or a Chimera proxy at least. Broglie is how Uma got wind of Led. He also mentions that Jacobius is going around killing Johnny Rydens. He asks if Rimia is Johnny's girlfriend. This time, Rimia punches Uma. The two make their leave. In Sweetwater, Siemens and a compatriot are meeting with Horst Harnest. Remember, Horst is a civil servant for Kaiser's Empire during Char's rebellion in the future. We learn, however, that Horst was in Zeon's military during the One-Year War, but worked in administrative services. Siemens' compatriot gives them privacy. Horst shows him a picture of a new battlecruiser that could go up against EFF's new Klopp-class ship. It doesn't have a name yet, but we know this as the Musaka class. Siemens wonders why they need this. It is for Zeon, but not controlled by the puppet Haman Khan. No, this will be commanded by the true son of Zeon, Char Aznable. After a speech to the EFF government in Dakar pleading to denounce the Titans, EFF was willing to reduce power to the Titans, but still downplayed the fact that Quattro was Char's Cassiville. He invited him to Sweetwater because they know that they are in possession of Minarete and that they would like it back. Horst mentions that it is a plant ship. It is 10 years old, but it is also 10 years ahead of its time. Research was stored there. Remember how Zeonic gave EFF and Anaheim Electronics all its data? Well, it turns out they actually gave half to AE and the other half to EFF, knowing they would make it proprietary and never share any data with each other, thus dividing Earth's forces more. So they haven't moved on it because two people have two different parts of the key and they don't talk to one another. Bureaucracy in action. Simmons wonders why not just get the data, but Horst needs the Minarete. It is a self-sustaining ship that has the design development system built into it. Remember, this allows one to fabricate a mobile suit in a matter of days and can build an army with the quickness. Simmons wonders, what if he already gave it to EFF? Horst says if that was the case, there's no way they would not catch on to the Zabi's instrument of revenge. He says he can't give him an answer and will have to consult with Johnny Ryden, their leader. Which one? As he takes his leave, he contacts Emma, who was listening into the conversation. What is this instrument of revenge he was talking about? Emma doesn't seem to know either, but there were blocks in Minarete that only the captain and Johnny knew about, and possibly Aisha as well. We will find out that she was probably boning Johnny. He heads back to the moon. Simmons wonders if this has anything to do with why Jacobius is now Oxner's dog. At FSS, security notices something happening in the building and they go to check it out. It happened to be a break-in and someone destroyed all of the computer terminals, as well as Remia's Hato. She is furious and wants to murder whoever did this. One terminal was left untouched. Rimia wants to check the serial number of the flight record on the core fighter that Led piloted. Scott helps them out. Rimia also calls FSS member Aishwarya to help them out. Simmons makes it back to his ship and wonders why Oxner doesn't know the location of Minarete. Cristobal has to head down to Earth and ask Jacobius about what this instrument of revenge is exactly. The Minarete's navigation system is automated and randomized, but the Zanzibar ship, the Sangre Azul, can figure out Minarete's current location, but that ship is also under Oxner's control. It has been 10 years. Has he not figured it out yet? Emma is going to join Cristobal down on Earth, and the two will pretend to be Anaheim Electronics employees. He can't bring down his mobile suit with him, but that doesn't mean he can't commandeer one while on Earth. Aishwarya is a programmer and hacker. She figured out the remaining terminal has a Trojan horse, which is a terrorist tactic. Destroy everything but leave one thing intact with the virus, which will then affect the network once people try to use it. The key phrase to activate this virus happens to be Johnny Ryden. Meanwhile, back at Jaburo, Jacobius is trying to move it, or else they will find themselves in the middle of a battle soon. This it that he is talking about happens to be the Sangre Azul. When everyone thought Minarete was being held in Jaburo, it was actually just the key to get you to Minarete. Rimia and Led are going over the data they have on Uma Lightning with the doctor. Based off of his age, he may be one of the first generations to undergo cyber new type enhancements. The doctor believes that he is one of the first because he only went through physical enhancements. and no psychological enhancements like seen in modern-day cyber new types. Essentially, early cyber new types were kids that were forced to roid out and grow into adult bodies. Think of a child athlete that overtrains at a young age. Like a young gymnast, their bodies are greatly tuned for gymnastics, but are stunted in other areas. Now force a child to take steroids and throw them into the battlefield. You are fundamentally creating a child who can only function in war. These early cyber new types are closer to super soldiers than what we would consider new types, and the term cyber new type didn't even exist when UMA went through enhancements. It is only when new type theory started getting popular and people like Amado started showing up. Now modern day cyber new types are simply reverse engineering new types, which involve training at a young age and growing the mind along with the body. But even so, it is still reverse engineering biology, and there is no biological free lunch. New types evolved to handle these states of being, but a cyber new type had to be enhanced to get to that state. Like someone on steroids, you typically have to be constantly taking these enhancements to keep the edge off. And we see that. Former Asame gets headaches and begins panicking without whatever drug Namikar gives her. Cyber new types seem to reach a breaking point. Much of the data on cyber new types are still classified, so they are shooting in the dark when it comes to why humans would treat other humans like this. But that is what war does to people. They do have data on Zeon's studies on new types and cyber new types. They once tried everyone. Kids, elderly, men, women, everything in between. Of course, the growing mind is the most optimal. However, Zeon focused on enhancing fortitude, having a stoic and unwavering demeanor when faced with chaos. The Federation, however, focused on human psyche, finding people's breaking points. What is interesting that we learn here is that Neo-Zeon cyber new types are closer to Federation cyber new types than original Zeon cyber new types. The Doctor says all this to let Led know that UMA most likely comes from the old school days of cyber new type enhancements, before the term new type was known to the common man. Before leaving, the Doctor suggests that there may be some infantilism in the older new types, but is unsure. Rimia is sad about what will happen to Uma after they eventually hand him over to EFF. He violated treaties and is a cyber new type, so it isn't looking good for him, and he will most likely get dissected like a lab rat. She tells Led that he once said that not everything born out of this war is a monster. Led says he will try to figure something out, but he isn't a miracle worker. Meanwhile, Oxner gives Jacobius some amphibious mobile suits to use. Jacobius looks up at a Ramzagok. We just talked about this unit in our War in the Pocket manga coverage. Go check that out. During the war, the Principality of Zeon planned to gain sea superiority and invested in many amphibious mobile suits. However, EFF went a different direction. Rather than take out Zeon little by little, they used starvation tactics. Since half the population went away during the 1-week war, resources were barren. They focused much of what little resources they had on recovering Odessa, which was Zeon's greatest supply source for their ground forces. Once they had Odessa, they instantly focused on space, cutting off supply lines heading back to Side 3. This allowed ground forces to play a war of attrition, slowly weeding out the remaining Zeon forces. This worked, but what this manga doesn't bring up is the fact that this allowed Zeon remnants to hold out all the way up to UC-0085, and it could be argued the cause for the rise in the Titans, possibly a bigger threat. The strategy by EFF didn't account for focusing the resources on the oceans. Near the end of the war, Zeon even focused their attention away from the seas and more on space. Post-war, EFF did what they did best, used the amphibious mobile suits for their own needs. At an unknown location, Ingrid Zero and Vasuki, aka Yazan Gable, land in an aircraft. Ingrid refers to Yazan as Uncle Snake. Out in space, the Wayland Squadron and Jim Sniper Customs are meeting with the Shamshir Squad. The commander got a hold of a Zeon beam rifle. That is when they get attacked by a damaged Gelgoog. He IDs the unit and realizes that it is the Crimson Lightning. He takes out his unit one by one until the commander is the only one left. He is able to shoot and take out the Gelgoog. He heads to the cockpit to find Johnny Ryden bleeding out. This commander is the FSS president, Hoover. In the present, he is looking up at the same Gelgoog. He meets with Led Wayline. In the Gop Nature Park, Gop and Ingrid Zero go for a horse carriage ride. This fat ass got a hiking trail named after him, and rather than hike, he uses a horse? God damn the irony. It turns out that Gop's family has been tending to this park since the old century. His family helped keep the area public lands, and no corporation can build on top of it. Yazan is escorting Ingrid, but Gop wants him to help on a big mission. He reminds him that he is nothing more than a pilot. He knows that he is Yazan Gable. He is shocked that he knows his past. but he still insists on being called Vasuki. Remember, Gop wasn't a frontman during the war. He was in Jaburo handling the politics and financiers. Logistics and supply chains is the value he provided during the 1-year war, and because of him, Operation V came to be. We saw a little bit of this in our coverage of Gundam The Origin, where Gop played a bigger role. Such lowly officers like himself didn't have to lower their standards during the 1-year war. If you are following in our coverage of Gundam Katana, we have seen some EFF squads become desperate and resort to selling drugs or stealing. It seems Gop prevented his particular squad during the 1-year war from having to resort to that. Yazan is grateful? Huh, what a complex psychopath. That being said, he wants Gop to get to the point. The history books will say that EFF won the war, but Gop believes that it was the Space Noids. Earth has become an empty shell of what it was. It is merely a symbol. This is where Haman Khan failed. She should have tried to conquer Space Noids instead of ruling over Earth. Earth's days are numbered. More and more companies are moving production off Earth. Earth now relies more on Space Noids, more so than the opposite. This is exactly what Full Frontal tells the world in a few years later in UC0096. Furthermore, Gop says that Zeon, for all intents and purposes, acquired their independence. After the war, they returned to a republic and took on enormous amounts of debt. As a republic, EFF was supposed to take on their debt, but at the time, this would bankrupt them, so they never merged Zeon. But that is when Zeon did something EFF didn't expect. They tried to sell off all its military assets to a private company, mainly Anaheim Electronics. Zeonic, MIP, Zimad, all these could be swallowed up by one corporation and hold the monopoly. So EFF did what government does best. They intervened. This split up Zeon's military assets. Half went to the Federation, and half went to Anaheim Electronics. We learned earlier also that splitting up the assets split up the piece of the puzzle. You need both pieces to solve it. Gop recognizes that he is a bureaucratic parasite, but he notes that a parasite needs a host. The host is on the verge of death, and he believes the thing that will upset the balance of power is Minarete. Before taking his leave, Gop asks Yazan what Patimus Sirocco was like. He just says that he was an interesting person. Yazan makes his leave. Led and Hoover are in the FSS archives. He wants to investigate Jaburo, but Hoover says it is out of the question. The official reason is because of the nuclear explosion during Zeta, but in reality, most of the base is intact. The official reason is that it is someone else's turf, and whoever these people are, they want it to decay in silence. Hoover suggests that Led just settle down and live life quietly already. Scott informs Rimia about his data on the core fighter that was recovered. He shows her the serial number before they ran maintenance before the mission, and the serial number of the core fighter after it was recovered. It is a different serial number. Someone switched out the unit. That is when Led and Bob sit next to her. Led wants to sneak into Jaburo. Jacobius notes that there is a Garuda class nearby. They go to Battle Station 1. On the Garuda, Yazan's new team members are testing out the gaplant. He reminds his team that they are running training exercises while doing recon on the outer edge of Jaburo. Led tells Rimia and Bob about his run-in with little Johnny Ryden while on the island. All he knows is that she wanted him to go to Jaburo. They don't know how they are going to pull off breaking into Jaburo, but that is when Scott has a plan. Later that night, they deactivate the security cameras and break out Uma Lightning. Bob and Aishwarya bring a car and they take Uma away. Uma says, "Hey Johnny, where are we going? Are you in trouble, Johnny? Hey Johnny, what is happening?" Led says, "Shut up, I'm not Johnny." He realizes that they are going to South America and tells him that he could call in friends. Scott tells Hoover about the incident, claiming that Led and Rimia are chasing the people who broke out Uma Lightning. Hoover says, "Yeah, sure, so you needed the FSS elite hacker and Bob as well, I see." Scott just says it is a precaution. Hoover is fed up with this, but he will pretend to play along with whatever Led is up to. Jacobius and his team just monitor Yazan's team. His transformable mobile suits are gas guzzlers, so they will let them waste their gas and not give away their location. They are hiding somewhere underground. Yazan notes a bombing run recently and inspects the area and does another bombing run. He seems to know that they are somewhere nearby. Meanwhile, Cristobal and Emma are heading to Dakar pretending to be a newlywed couple. Led and the gang are waiting at an abandoned port when out of the water emerges a Jukon-class sub. With this, they will be able to get to South America no problem. Jacobius sends in a Saberfish squad to take out the gaplants and the Garuda. He looks on the radar and notices that the Garuda seems to be monitoring them as well. Amongst the gaplant team is Yazan. They've been exhausted of fuel and need to return. This was PMC Themis' plan, to wait until they were low on fuel and make their move. The Saberfishies make their attack. We just see what Jacobius sees from the Garuda. Blips on the radar crashing with one another. On board the Jukon, they eat some soup suspended from the top of the hull. Things slide around on a sub. Military supplies are minimal these days for Zeon remnants, but they are able to get supplies from towns no problem. Even if citizens find out that they are Zeon, they genuinely don't care. Business is business. In this economy, Rimia asks how they get money. The captain says that sympathizers lend them money. But it isn't Zeon. It comes from the Federation Navy. They wonder why. The captain believes that they are funded because they believe there is a need for them. Essentially, they are paying for their purpose. Or in French terms, their raison d'etre. Ew, French words. If the enemy disappears, the Federation Navy would most likely be disbanded. They are paying their enemy to keep them in the business of war. Things were good for the sea-bearing Zeon remnants until the Grips conflict started. The sea seemed to still be safe, but their land forces were obliterated during this time, and the sea can't function without the land. So this hurt them, but ultimately, they were still ignored by the Federation on the sea. This wasn't to maintain peace. The Federation simply believed Zeon remnants in the sea would die out if left alone. He says this will be their last mission. Uma begins going into a story about Johnny Ryden, and Led punches him and says that he is not Johnny Ryden. Rimia suggests he stop punching random people. Meanwhile, Gop gifts Ingrid 0 the heavy Gundam. The FA-78-2 Heavy Gundam Unit 2 is equipped with the same armaments of the original Heavy Gundam. The core block system was gutted for Ingrid's unit and replaced with a biosensor. It has a shoulder-mounted beam cannon on its right shoulder. It also has a custom BOA beam rifle that is essentially the XBR-79, but with EPACs. Other weapons include a frame launcher, which includes a Gatling gun and a 4-tube missile launcher. It also has a folding shield and a custom bazooka. We saw the original Heavy Gundam used in Mobile Suit Gundam MSV Battle Chronicle Johnny Ryden. Go check out this story which follows Johnny Ryden during and after the war. Got mentions that they keep all of the remaining RX-78 line of Gundams in safekeeping. He also explains to Ingrid about them gutting the core block system and making room for the biosensor. He explains how Psychomu data is hard to parse, mainly because it is all dependent on the pilot. For example, he explains to her how the Psycho Gundam once attacked Hong Kong seeking out its owner. Ingrid thinks of the Gundam as being like a pet. Uma informs the team about the Sangre Azul and how it contains a device that tracks where Minarete currently is. He says that Minarete threatens the equilibrium of Universal Century. When asked why, he says that only Johnny would know. Ingrid calls herself Johnny Ryden and was the one that sent Led on this journey, so maybe she knows something. Uma and Ingrid are friends. Uma was one of the first to receive cyber new type enhancements, but so was Ingrid. However, during the 1-year war, they were all the same age, but she is still a kid. Uma thinks she was put into cold sleep. If she is making moves, then it means that Johnny Ryden has made a return. 2 more Jukon subs approach their location. They are allies, and they now have a fleet of subs to work with. Uma calls Johnny Led and tells him to be their leader. He is over this, but now Rimia has given in and started calling him Mr. Crimson Lightning. Uma shows off his Gelgoog. We learned about this Gelgoog earlier in this series, but Uma casually drops the fact that it was made by Anaheim Electronics. Dude just casually gave away trade secrets. Led says he could only pilot Federation mobile suits, but he shows him inside the cockpit where the internals are all made of Federation parts. He already knew this. I think he's just trying to get out of piloting it. On the Garuda, Yazan is 3 hours out from Jaburo. Their objective is the Sangre Azul. Many of the space docks function as construction docks post 1-year war. They narrowed down the location to 3 docks, which they are calling Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. All Jukons are ready. They fire a barrage of surface-to-air missiles. Jacobius sends a Lugan to scout the area. Yazan is informed of the missiles as well. He doesn't change his plan and says that things don't go your way on the battlefield. Jukons sink to the bottom of the sea while the mobile suit team heads out. Like Dracer, the Zeon Remnant captain seems to be shaking with excitement to return to the battle. Rimia and Uma launch in an Akai, while Led launches in Uma's Gelgoog. As Minovsky particle density increases, Jacobius sends out the Saberfish squad and holds off on mobile suits. They need to get permission from their client, Oxner, if they could shoot down the Garuda. He says that it is unlikely. The ground team sets up camp. Like Yazan, they come to the conclusion that the Sangre Azul will be in one of these 3 locations. They plan on capturing it and then sending out a flare, getting the attention of Ingrid. They hear a loud noise outside as Minovsky particles increase. Saberfishies fly by. Ashwalia connects to the FSS database to confirm if they are coming from the Garuda. At FSS headquarters, Hoover is watching Ashwalia access the files. Meanwhile, Cristobal and Emma were supposed to meet with Jacobius, but he never made it to the meeting. They will hang out for a week in disguise to see what happens. They suggest meeting with a man named Scott. Yazan's gaplants engage with the Saberfishies and some G-armors. Themis sends out some gem quells on the ground and Zagok's in the water. Yazan is commanding his team gracefully as the veteran soldier he is. Jacobius notices that they are good. He tells his underling to take over and he heads out to make a call to Oxner. He wants to know if they could shoot down the Garuda. Oxner mentions that they are considered national property. Garudas have apparently become a part of transportation infrastructure for supplies and goods for the Federation. Then why are they still being used in war? He says then that the only other 2 options are destroying the Sangre Azul, which will destroy their chances of finding Minarete. The other option is to launch Sangre Azul unmanned. Oxner suggests sending it to Side 3. Jacobius wonders why not give it to Gop. He says the 2 would have different approaches to Minarete and would most likely destroy it. Oxner ends his call and just so happens to be meeting with Gop. A sniper is camping outside of Led and the gang's camp. Their location allows them to camp out long term. Rimia suggests that they just wait for the other forces to fight over the Sangre Azul and then they jump in to take it. Uma will act as a vanguard. Rimia decides to go with him to collect data. Meanwhile, Emma and Cristobal meet with Scott, who happens to be the same Scott that works at FSS. Scott, Emma, and Cristobal go out to eat. They have some small talk before Emma asks about Jacobius. We learn that Scott was actually a part of the Chimera Corps. He tells them that he is probably at Jaburo. Emma asks Scott if he knows about the Zabi's instrument of revenge. Gop and Oxner discuss policy changes. If Oxner becomes Prime Minister, he assumes that he is talking about increasing military budgets, but he tells him to forget about the military. He opens his windows to reveal a gaudy aquarium. His go-to business power move is to show off some fish. Weird flex. Gop tells him that this is a political fight. He wants to know his true intentions for Universal Century. In order for him to achieve his ideals, he thinks that he must take down Gop. This is Oxner's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington moment, where he realizes politics isn't a game. He tells Gop his truth for Universal Century. Jacobius breaks down what Gop's true objective is. Destroying Sangre Azul doesn't seem like the right move. Maybe they are after the coordinate computer that can track Minarete. He then realizes that they are planning the same thing they are. They are going to try to launch it into space. Uma and Rimia find an access point to allow Ashwaria to connect to the Jaburo network. Uma mentions Asia, a woman that used to look after Ingrid and him and was Johnny's former lover. She asks what she is doing now. Uma tells her that she is dead. He and Ingrid were the one to kill her. They take off in awkward silence. When mobile suits rose to power, stealth was never really considered since it was assumed there would be Minovsky particle disruption, so people would go in and scout the old-fashioned way. This would usually be accomplished with a plane, but Zeon thought to give the role to a mobile suit as well. The At Guy was particularly good at stealth. Stealth isn't about staying under the radar since Minovsky particles are a thing. So what makes a mobile suit stealthy is visibility and most importantly, audibility. Essentially, the At Guy wasn't loud when it snuck up on you. Also, Zeon's fluid pulse engine was quieter than the Federation's motor propulsion. The arms are what make the At Guy more fascinating. The arms have a locking mechanism, but can unlock to enable the elastic arms. Whether land or sea, the At Guy was a solid choice for infiltration and why it was designed to break into Jaburo. Gaplants engage with the gem quells. Jacobius decides to go out with his Gelgoog cannon. Back at FSS, Scott gives Cristobal and Emma a Dom Mermaid, as they are dedicated to going to Jaburo now. The MS-09M Dom Mermaid is a modified Dom designed to operate over water. It is equipped with large stabilizer wings and 2 water jet engines on each ankle. Although it hovers over water, it is still considered an aquatic mobile suit. The Dom already has amazing boosters built into the feet. The additional twin engine makes this a speed beast and can glide across the oceans at great speeds. There is no data, but I assume this can equip all of the Dom's weapons, including the scattering beam cannon, a heat rod, and its mini bazookas. Scott says, oh, by the way, Johnny Ryden is at Jaburo as well. Oh, and Jacobius. Oh, and Uma and Ingrid. Remember, they are all former Chimera Corps members, with Cristobal, Emma, and Siemens supposedly being the only active members. He gives them a Medea to use as well. Scott has more pool than I thought. Cristobal is ready to repay his debt to Johnny Ryden. Jacobius in the Gelgoog cannon begins taking out base jabbers from Yazan's aerial support unit. He knows the area better, and if he could get Yazan's team to the ground, then they will have the advantage. Yazan's wingman, Kawase, checks out a third location while he and another stay on the front lines. They already scouted out 2 areas for the Sangre Azul. Rimia and Uma Lightning spot a combat unit with a utility vehicle that they seem to be transporting somewhere. They decide to follow them. Yazan spots Jacobius and his team. They scatter while Jacobius tries to draw out the gaplant. Jacobius shows Yazan how a sniper fights. Meanwhile, the Jukon crew and Uma's associates notice a mobile suit in scouting formation. The captain mentions this is standard movements of Zeon. We return to Oxner and Gop's conversation. Oxner wants to see an end to Universal Century. He is from Sydney. After the colony drop, he didn't feel sadness or hatred. He felt impatient. He believes humans will soon bring ruin to themselves. Gop wonders if this is why he acquitted the Chimera Corps. Uma Lightning and Ingrid were old-school cyber new types that just had their bodies enhanced. But one thing Oxner notes is that these 2 original cyber new types lack resentment. He thinks if humanity can be more like them and erase malice from the hearts of people, humanity can attain happiness. Too many are burdened by their pasts. We have seen this lack of resentment in Uma with his jovial behavior calling Rimia big sis and whatnot. But Ingrid totally resents Led for picking on her in the previous arc. Daikun and Zeon are products of resentment from being cast out into space and treated like second-class citizens. Oxner believes that if humanity built the colonies and the age of Universal Century with good intentions, instead of it being merely an easy way to cast humans off of Earth, then things would be very different. He believes that colonies are nothing but mere prisons. It is time to start anew on Earth. If you are following along in our coverage of Hathaway's Flash, this return to Earth mentality doesn't become policy until UC 0105, and the privileged class of EFF tries to make Earth a land grab for the rich before opening the floodgates to the public. But we could see that the Return to Earth bill started with people like Oxner and Gop with conversations like this. Gop agrees. He wants humanity to simply survive, so this doesn't go against his agenda, so he is kind of on board. Yazan notices that the beam colors have changed. He wonders if it is one or multiple snipers in the area. He is able to spot a beam rifle with a remote trigger. The gaplant lands and trips on a landmine. He is barely able to dodge the attack. Both Jacobius and Yazan recognize they are fighting skilled pilots. Both actually seem to be getting off on it. The men on the ground are working with Yazan's team looking for Sangre Azul. Rimia and Uma continue spying on them. She wants to contact Led. At FSS base camp, Led wants to go out even though Bob suggests he wait a little longer. Aishwarya thinks that Led is Johnny Ryden because he was able to bring everyone together at Jaburo. He tells her he is Led. This throws him off and he gives Rimia 1 more hour before taking action. We cut to a top secret file from the past. Researchers are explaining to Degwanzabi that they have reverse engineered a plant that is used in colony soil. It is a sprout that has the ability to take over plant life around it and grow. EFF uses a virus as a vector for growth. Zeon found a way to make it grow 10 to 15 times faster. Because this is a sister strain and not a copy, it is something made completely by space noids. They wonder what happens if dropped in existing colonies. A scientist says it will simply keep growing. They call this virus vector Ashtaroth. Daikun is also in this meeting. The TV turns off. Oxner was showing this intel to Gop. Gop knows of this. It was planned to be used as a weapon by the Zabis to destroy Earth with this infinite growing tumor plant. But what if they unleashed the infinitely growing tumor plant on the colonies? This would force everyone back to Earth where they could rebuild anew. He says that things should calm down after 10 years, but great losses are to come. This is how Oxner plans to end end Universal Century, or rather restart it. He accepts that he will probably go down as Universal Century's worst prime minister. Gop wants to make a wager with Oxner. Don't pull out a chessboard, don't pull out a chessboard, don't pull out a chessboard. Motherfucker! That's so cliche. You don't have to be so on the nose. We already know you are the elite and are playing with people's lives. He says if his men succeed at taking the Sangre Azul, he will give up on his plan of destroying Universal Century. If he succeeds at defending, he could do as he please. They sit down and play a game of chess while their men continue fighting at Jaburo. Kawase finds a heat signature at the third location and is certain the Sangre Azul is located here. He informs Yazan and they head to Kawase's location. Jacobius notices they are heading towards Sangre Azul. They seem to have found it. The men on the ground move to the Zanzibar's location. Uma realizes they are heading towards the old 16th launch dock. He thinks this is where Sangre Azul is located. He tells one of the Zagaks accompanying them to send a message back to Led. Meanwhile, a Musai-class ship carrying Horsed Harness orbits Earth. They are amazed EFF is weakened to a point where they aren't even spotted. They watch and monitor the battle in Jaburo from Earth orbit. Horst seems to want his hands on the Sangre Azul as well. He believes that newborn Neo-Zeon can use Astaroth instead of their current plan of dropping 5th Luna onto Earth. Seaman meets with Ganem and Meyer May. Together they form the Three-Headed Dragon. The three meet with Millie Childer and Hookbolt, the financial vice director of Anaheim Electronics. Millie was last seen in Mobile Suit Gundam Double Zeta eating pizza with Judao and the gang. AE is working with them, but the company has labeled their group as problematic, so they will be monitoring them. However, Hookbolt does have a gift for them that Anaheim Electronics seem to have acquired. They look at a picture and stare in amazement. It happens to be the Garden of Thorns. After O'Sullivan committed suicide after being outed for having ties to Delaz, he left coordinates to the Garden of Thorns, and Anaheim Electronics took it for themselves. They occasionally used it for experiments. Siemens decides to go check it out. Yazan and Jacobius continue fighting while Uma hides close by underwater. Uma recognizes Jacobius. Led gets the message from the Zagak. He plans on having a Zagak drag his mobile suit underwater. He gets into the Gelgoog Johnny Ryden custom. Someone from FSS explains the effects on the virus vector. Remember, Oxner created FSS and there are layers to this company. It seems Daikun was the lead on the project, but they never intended it to be a weapon. They were just trying to reverse engineer colony soil to make their own. Once it enters into an ecosystem, it will take about a year to propagate. It takes over all plants, bacteria, and animal ecosystems, and eventually dies off after decimating all life. If this were to be unleashed on Earth, it would take about 9 years. Jacobius is so fast that he causes Yazan to take a lot of G's to the face, and he almost passes out. He is way too excited about almost dying. The fight is getting too intense, so Uma dives deeper into the water and they look for an escape. Uma is certain Johnny will come soon. Jacobius spots the At Guy and tells his men to be on guard as there is a third party here. He wonders if it is Uma. That is when Ingrid makes her appearance in her Heavy Gundam Unit 2. She says long time no see to her former Chimera partner. She expects Johnny to make an appearance soon. Yazan says, who the hell is this Johnny guy everyone keeps mentioning? This isn't a part of the mission. He's out of the loop. Jacobius can tell Ingrid has a Psychomu system. Even Jacobius isn't able to keep up with her. She is able to slice off the Gelgoog's legs. They make a break for the Sangre Azul while he is down. Scott goes to Hoover's office to ask for a mobile suit transport to head to Jaburo. Hoover is tired of whatever is going on and says, screw it, I am handling this myself and you're coming with me, Scott. Hoover's taking the tie off, it's on. Yazan and Ingrid make it to PMC Themis' location and begins taking out gems. He notes that Ingrid is trying not to kill anyone. Jacobius was instantly picked up and asks for a sitrep. They seem to be at a stalemate with their forces. They just need to hold off until they could launch the Sangre Azul. He realizes his age has caught up to him. As Uma and Rimia travel through the underwater maze that is Jaburo, they stumble onto the foot soldiers from earlier. They seem to have better maps than they do. Uma listens into their conversation. They plan on blowing the door. The Sangre Azul should be right behind there. They will let these soldiers do the hard work, and then Uma will jump in. Yazan tells his men to protect Ingrid. They follow the river towards the Sangre Azul. When out of the water comes the Zagaks and Led in the red Gelgoog. Meanwhile, FSS, Cristobal, and Emma take off in an Argama-class ship. Hoover is wearing a pilot suit, ready for Jaburo. But Scott is scared because the boss is the most mischievous of all the FSS members. Led begins fighting with Yazan, who is sure he is a Chimera member. Ingrid tells him to head for the target while she handles this guy. His men, Valenstein and Kawase, are down. They have to meet up with the ground forces. Yazan takes off and leaves Led to the princess. She has been waiting for this moment for a while. Meanwhile, Uma and Rimia are watching as Yazan's ground forces blow the door. That is when Uma makes his moves in the At Guy. God bless the At Guy. He tears through the ground forces' gyms. Jacobius is informed that Yazan's ground forces have made their way through their main defense to Sangre Azul, and also there is an At Guy fighting both sides. Jacobius remembers seeing the At Guy earlier and is now certain that it is Uma Lightning. He goes out to greet his old comrade. As Uma defeats gym after gym, he flashes back to a girl named Asia telling him not to throw his life away. We've gotten hints that Asia and Johnny were once lovers. With the help of Johnny, he will survive and push forward. He defeats the ground forces and makes it to the Sangre Azul. As the two fight, Ingrid tells Led to come with him. They could escape on the Sangre Azul. They won't have an opportunity like this again. But Led doesn't know what she is talking about. Uma drops off Rimia at the Sangre Azul command station, and she hacks into the control center. She says it's thanks to her dad that she could do things like that. Remember, her dad is Roy Greenwood, one of the Zeon elite pilots that was in the Brave Soldier in the Sky series. Back at base camp, Ashwarya goes on a rant with Bob about the difference between sherbet and sorbet when Rimia creates a link to the Jaburo control system. They get an email from Hoover, but she doesn't answer. She just looks at Bob and says, I really want to analyze Jaburo. She says it with a smile, but underneath, she seems like the type that will stab Bob if he asks any follow-up questions. Ashwarya gets access and begins stealing data. Led has no idea what Ingrid is going on about, and doesn't get why she would be willing to betray her comrades for him, simply because she thinks that he is Johnny. They could handle Minarete, but she just gets blank stares. She can't believe he doesn't remember anything. Their mobile suits grapple with one another. A cosmic glow begins emitting from the two. Yazan notes he saw the same thing during grips. The biosensor has the ability to amplify thoughts, so Ingrid is going to try something. A bright light consumes Led. He wakes up and sees Asia. She refers to him as Johnny. He goes to find a young Uma and Ingrid fighting over who is the best Zeon ace pilot. We cut to Kycilia telling Johnny that he will be leading Chimera in the Battle of Abawaku. However, they won't engage in battle, but rather protect Kycilia as a display for Giran. She is prepping for a coup and a civil war post-1 year war. We fade to black and see Asia saving the Chimera, but dies in an explosion. The explosion was caused by Johnny Ryden's hands. On board the Chimera, Johnny is going to handle Uma. Jacobius wants to join him, but he says he can handle it himself. Uma and Johnny are on the same level, so if he lets his emotions get the best of him, he will lose. Cristobal tells Johnny that Asia said when dealing with Uma, you also have to deal with Ingrid. He wishes him luck, and he heads out. In the present, Led doesn't know where these memories come from. Yazan was close enough to the light that he also was able to see the memories. Jacobius monitors Ingrid. In space, Horse Harness and Neo Zeon are able to see the light. As Ashwarya and Rimia scrape data, she realizes that launch is set for 30 minutes from now. The coordinates aren't located at the command center and are programmed directly into the Zanzibar's navigation system. The only way to find out is to board the ship. Ashwarya tells her not to, but she cuts off the comms and heads towards the ship. She doesn't want to have regrets. Ashwarya tells Bob to get into contact with the Jukon sub while she goes to work hacking. The Jukon crew gets a message from Bob about needing help. If they make their move, the ships nearby will spot them. Captain Ludwig decides to call in the U-47 crew. U-47 was also a type of U-boat during World War II. They contact Diva Vel, who calls upon his services. He is happy to help Johnny Ryden. They prep their fleet submarine force. A part of the submarine force is a new mobile suit. Now, I spent way too much time trying to figure out what this mobile suit is, but it appears that it is a design from a GUNPLA contest winner. There isn't really any details on this unit, but by its looks, it seems to be just a Zaku II with a more hydrodynamic design. One Ram Zagok heads out of the pack. We talked about the amphibious mobile suit development project by Zeon and how they strategized to gain superiority in the oceans. But after Zeon funds dried up, they used what they had. The Ram Zagok is a product of this. We talked about this in our coverage of the War in the Pocket manga, but its improved design features prevents it from stabbing something and getting stuck. The Jukon approaches the enemy and fires its torpedoes. They launch a mobile suit after the barrage. Uma Lightning heads outside with the Akai to find the giant light shining in the sky. Uma heads towards Johnny. He grabs Johnny's Gelgoog and demands Ingrid tells him what she did. The two bicker like siblings, because they pretty much are siblings. Then they begin engaging in battle. Jacobius takes aim with his sniper rifle, intending to break up the fight. Ashwarya is able to help Rimia by activating a ladder and cutting off the emergency alert. PMC Themis men watching can't do nothing as Ashwarya hack their systems. Rimia runs onto the ship. Outside, Ingrid ignores Uma and she and Yazan head to the Sangre Azul. Suddenly, a giant beam blast comes from the sky. It happens to be the Argama-class ship. Uma pulls lead out of his cockpit as he is dealing with potentially being Johnny Ryden. He gets into contact with Ashwarya as the Sangre Azul moves towards the mass driver's system. She tells Led that Rimia is on board that ship. Led tells Uma to get out. He is going to stop the launch sequence. Jacobius tells his men to get in between the enemy and the Sangre Azul. He wonders if he is doing the right thing helping Oxner. Led tries to talk to Yazan and get him to work together to stop the Zanzibar to save Rimia. He laughs at Led for not grasping on the fact that if someone so much as sneezes on the Sangre Azul, everyone will be dead. They make it seem like they have the Astaroth on the Sangre Azul, but I thought it was the thing to get to the thing. Either way, they have no interest in having the Sangre Azul blow up. Yazan rushes towards the Sangre Azul, but doesn't stop Led from helping. Jacobius notes that the two forces are working together now. He won't be able to stop them, but it doesn't matter because the Sangre Azul is ready for launch. A man walks into the office with the most gaudy picture of Xian Daikum. Of course, this is Char's office. He is informed of the situation regarding Horse Harnessed and Astaroth. He sends his fleet monitoring 5th Luna to go help out the old man. He believes that some bioweapon that is considered the legacy of the Zabi family has no value to him at this time. He looks at a classified document on the psychoframe. Char believes he doesn't need this weapon to accomplish his goal. Jacobius tells his men to set a 3-minute timer for lunch, but this won't be enough time for him to make his escape. Ashwarya found a disk that contains several viruses she created for FSS. She says that she used to use them to blackmail the boss, but you should never do that to the boss because he is crazy. Everyone who works at FSS is a psychopath in their own way. Also, Ashwarya tried to hack Hoover, looking for the nude pics. On the Argama class, Hoover and the team receives a message that entering South America airspace is prohibited. They are about to launch. Hoover, Cristobal, and Emma prep. The Dawn Mermaid only has 12 minutes of flight time. Led makes it to the launch site, but they are too late. As the Zanzibar launches, he yells out to Rimia. Uma in the Akai stops Led from getting blown up by the backfire of the launch. He is visibly mad. A Federation fleet approaches Horse Harness's Musai. At that moment, they notice something accelerating out of the atmosphere with great speeds. He wonders if this is the Sangre Azul. Unfortunately, they can't afford to lose any Neo-Zeon soldiers, so they pull out. Uma blames himself for letting this happen to Rimia, but Led doesn't blame him. Jacobius probably won't be attacking them again. Now that the Sangre Azul is no longer in Jaburo, PMC Themis has no reason to be there either. They all pack up their operation. One soldier comes in and tells Jacobius that the Sangre Azul has suddenly changed its trajectory. Back at base camp, Ashwarya tells Bob that they need to pack up ASAP and get out of here. She happened to be able to change the trajectory of the Sangre Azul, and only she knows its location. She walks away, and Bob just stares in befuddlement at what she just said. Don't give Bob a panic attack. The Ramzagok team gets hit. Ludwig and the Jukan team begin flanking. The Ramzagok pilots notice that they aren't attacking directly, and only attacking around them. He realizes that one sub is acting as a bait. It is a special ops U-boat that isn't picked up on sonar. It does this at the expense of being much slower than your typical U-boat. It also has some echo-absorbing technology that they try to bro science their way through. All this to say, radars are giving them false intel. They will simply try to make as much noise underwater to throw off the U-boats. As the Ramzagoks head out, U-47 begins moving very, very slowly. On Ludwig's U-boat, he says that they can't keep dodging their torpedoes forever. He realizes that more enemy forces are on their way, and U-47 knows this. They're going to sacrifice themselves and let Ludwig escape. Xeon remnants are so bored and hiding that they will commit suicide for you at a moment's notice. Ludwig hasn't heard from any of Johnny's team. The Argama class launches some Dawn escargots. The Dawn escargot is an anti-submarine bomber used during the 1-year war. It was made to specifically hunt down Jukan U-boats. They can deploy sonar buoys and quickly go into action. It is equipped with 4 anti-air machine guns for defense, torpedoes, and depth charges. The Argama has been hailed by the 109th Battle Sector and wants to know why they are spreading Minovsky particles. They ignore them as Hoover heads out to launch. Cristobal and Emma drop launch in the Dom Mermaids.
Ludwig positions his U-boat under U-47 and informs all other boats in the area to pull out. They need someone to go extract Johnny Ryden. As they spread out below the water, above them, the Argama-class ship appears. Hoover is in a gem intercept custom without the fellow booster. He is drawing power directly from the Argama, but he can't draw too much power. He preps for a little sniping. Below, the weird underwater Zaku moves fast towards U-47. Remember, everyone has been sending sonar blips causing so much noise underwater that no one knows where anyone is. But charges begin dropping near the ram Zagox. They spot the mobile suits and notice that it is just a Zaku and take it out. The Zagox surface to find Cristobal and Emma in Dom Mermaids. They begin taking out a team of ram Zagox. U-47 and U-207 head towards the surface. The ram Zagox are now stuck in a pincer maneuver between the U-boats and the Argama crew. Ludwig doesn't know if the Argama is friend or foe yet, but they are fighting against their enemies, so they use this to their advantage. One Zagox is taken out by Hoover. The Argama gets an enemy signal from the Jukon as they surface. They make the Jukon look huge in this manga. The Gruta gets away from Jaburo. Yazan looks out to Ingrid's heavy Gundam. Her suit is also rocking the Johnny Ryden unicorn logo, but with a bow added. The U-47 captain Diva and his crew abandon ship as their hulls aren't going to hold. They relieve their mobile suits to not get in the hands of the Federation. He salutes his ship that probably was his home for years. Oxner and Gop get word of the results. It is considered a draw since no one got their hands on the Sangre Azul. Oxner considers this a loss to him. They inform one another that they intend to continue the search for the Zanzibar, so it seems their deal isn't entirely over. It is for now, however, as the two depart. Before leaving, Gop says that word will get out to space about what happened in Jaburo. No matter how far man leaves Earth, man also has a way of getting the word out there. Hoover invites the U-boat crew on board the ship. They look out to the Sangre Azul, now a blip. They have to head into space and go after it. Simmons gets intel regarding the Sangre Azul heading into space. They haven't been able to get into contact with Emma and Cristobal. They prep for launch just in case. Gop and Ingrid meet with Yazan to discuss their next mission. Gop shows the two a picture of Horst Harness's Musai hanging out in Earth orbit. They don't seem to know who this is, but Gop's men are investigating. But it is very intriguing to Gop. 3 ships make a fleet, which is quite hard to do. This would require a lot of maintenance, and that maintenance would leave a paper trail. However, Gop is finding nothing. The Space Noids are covering up their tracks and hiding Neo-Zeon remnants. They wonder who is rebuilding the scattered remnants so close to Hamon's uprising. Yazan heard that the Federation captured Zazabi and is using her as a puppet. He wonders if the remnants are strong enough to acquire her. Gop lets them in on a Federation secret. The Zazabi they have is a fake. Let's give some context to the timeline. The first Neo-Zeon War ended in 89, where they found out that Zazabi was a fake. This conversation is happening in 91, and the events of this manga in 90 and 91. Minerva's events with Yuta in Moon Gundam are happening in 91 to 92. Gop says that Minerva will only gain support from Zabi supporters, but most of those disappeared during Hamon's uprising. He doesn't think Minerva has anything to do with this, however. Yazan is quick to read between the lines and realizes that Gop thinks that Neo-Zeon are looking for Quattro Bagina, aka Char Aznable, aka Cassival Rim Daikun. Dude has as many names as the RZA, aka Prince Rakim, aka Bobby Dynamite. You get the picture. Gop says that Yazan's silence speaks many words. Most believe that Char was killed in action, and it is also EFF's official stance. The Musai's appearance means they at least know of Minarete or at least Sangre Azul's existence. On the colony Sweetwater, Horst Harness and the Musais make their way back home. Char personally meets Horst to reprimand him for his actions. Char meets with the colony higher-ups, including Horst. He pleads with Char to consider using Astaroth instead of 5th Luna for their attack. They have limited resources, and this would be the more effective and efficient approach to getting people off planet. You could already tell he is the self-defeating Char that we see in Char's counterattack. He recognizes Astaroth's effectiveness, but he wants Earthnoids to suffer great losses for immigrating off planet. He says that this is what is needed to create great new types. However, he says they will try to capture the Zanzibar. If they succeed, they will go with Horst's plan and keep 5th Luna in their back pocket. On board the Argama, the U-47 crew gets some food and some rest while Hoover debriefs the FSS team. He wonders who gave Led permission for this operation. Led plays dumb and says it was his own decision. He wants to know how Led and the gang got a hold of military-grade weapons. Led says it was a straw millionaire kind of situation. This isn't the first time this folklore came up during these videos. It is a story about a Buddhist who traded a straw until he eventually traded up to becoming a millionaire. He wonders where's Rimia and tells him that is a long story. He isn't buying any of this nonsense and tells everyone to leave except for Led and Scott. Since it is such a long story, he has time. He will hear him out. Outside of the briefing room, Uma Lightning runs, boobs first, into Emma. They haven't seen each other in quite some time since Uma gathered Emma, Siemens, and Cristobal together. There's a moment of silence. Emma realizes that Uma completely forgot about them. Dude is an ADHD-riddled cyber new type. Uma wants Emma's help finding Rimia. He says he can't look Johnny in the eyes until he fixes his mistake. Emma goes, yeah, I think Cristobal can handle this one. Uma wonders how she knows Rimia Greenwood. Remember, her dad is an important figure. Meanwhile, on the Sangre Azul, Rimia is crushed by supplies on the ship. Oh, she twitched. She's alive. She's fine. California base. Hoover and the Argama captain, whose name is Ditcott, are looking at a booster designed for the Argama. Also, the name of their Argama is Nakia. These engineers were never assigned another mission after the 1-year war, but their paychecks kept coming in, so they just kind of rolled with it. But they don't really have any funding outside of their accounting glitch that they are exploiting. So random. Leave it to a Fetty contractor to just keep coming in so long as the check clears. That being said, look at this guy's character design. It is as glorious as his beard. Hoover says that he has 10 days to fix the booster. The California base team needs at least 2 weeks and more mechanics. Hoover says, yeah, that's no problem. I'm rich and mysterious. Ha 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 ha. He calls in a favor from someone to help get funds and engineers to help with the problem. He says he should have men in no time. Hoover tells the team that he understands what it is like to have to abandon projects due to budget cuts and politics. Then he goes, wait a minute, no I don't. I'm rich and mysterious. Ha ha ha. Hoover and FSS meets with the U-boat team. The FSS president is trying to create a fleet and needs people. They want the Zeon remnants to leave the oceans and come to space with them. They have 3 Musais from the 1-year war that they could use. They have the option. They could join the Federation and help them, they could head back to Side 3 and the Republic, or they could head back to the sea to fight another day as a Zeon remnant. Since U-47 is no more, Captain Diva agrees to join Hoover's fleet. Ludwig is more reluctant, but given the options and the decades of laying low, he believes that it is time for the old people to swallow their pride. He is in, but he wants to know what Johnny Ryden thinks, aka Led. Led simply says that all he could do is fight for the people in his life that he loves. They all agree to help out. Ditcott says that this is turning into a circus, but Hoover says this is where the fun begins. Hoover tells him that he kept his cool back there when he was being called Johnny Ryden. He walks away. Hoover says no matter how much you change, you are still Johnny. He lets Johnny and the other FSS members off the hook for their actions at Jaburo. As he leaves to check on Uma, Hoover is reminded of the past. We flash back to a battle in space. Ditcott is on the bridge. Many of the crew are young. He notes the military isn't what it used to be. They are protecting a medical Columbus-class ship. On the battlefield is Hoover and a Jim going by the name Ensign Wayline. They are able to protect the Columbus, but many on board are dead. They are looking for Johnny Ryden, but unable to find him. He is awakened from his flashback by Ditcott. Hoover tells him that Oxner confirmed it was Gop's men who attacked PMC Themis. He wonders if they informed Oxner of the particulars, but the two seem to keep details on the down low. Since Johnny Ryden is the key to Minarete, Hoover is concerned of what will happen if Led comes into contact with it. Ditcott says it is time that they hold hands with Oxner. A car rolls up in front of the Argama-class ship. It happens to be Jacobius, who is joining their team. On the debris field is the Pegasus-class ship, the Blanc Rival. The SCV-73 Blanc Rival is the 5th Pegasus-class ship made by EFF. Like the Albion, this Pegasus has a Minovsky-craft system, though in this story it seems that there is no Minovsky-craft system as they will use other methods to launch into space. But unlike the Albion and the White Base, this has extra living quarters and more gravity blocks. It is equipped with 2 twin 580 main guns, a series of twin megaparticle guns, anti-craft guns, and missile launchers. This originally debuted in the Zeonic Front video games. Gop's team is running training exercises. Yazan is able to sneak behind Ingrid in her heavy Gundam. He is piloting the Gem Nightseeker. The head has been changed out to a prototype Jagan head. Although Yazan will mention that it has no designation later, this unit is called the RGM-79V Gem Nightseeker, Vasuki Custom, and is based off of the Gem 3 instead of the Gem. This should be an RGM line of mobile suits, but the name itself confuses the enemy. The Jagan head shows the
evolution of what will come in 3 years. Before integrating it into its own unit, it makes sense to test certain parts, like a Jagan head, on a body with trusted hardware. Yazan tells them that in space, you are always exposed, so you have to keep on moving. Ingrid is able to get the upper hand on Yazan's wingmen, Wallenstein and Kawase. We also see simulated explosion and beam sabers, which answers my question about how physics of simulated weapons work. The captain of the Blanc rival is worried, because anytime ace pilots are involved, it means combat is most certainly coming. They are also working autonomously on board the ship. Usually, this means there is always a conflict of command. No one technically has command over anyone, but once someone doesn't play ball, another will try to assert authority, and it becomes a command nightmare. It is best that the Blanc rival's crew just listen to, in this case, Gop's desires. Back on board the ship, Yazan tells Ingrid that he could sense that she could sense that the Gundam is hyper-reactive in nature. Don't look at her like that. That's the same look you gave to that pig before you killed it in Double Zeta. Uma Lightning is angry at Jacobius' presence. Also, damn, I know Gundam artists love butt shots, but make it look real. That wedgie is deep in there. I can't be comfortable. Poor Emma. Jacobius and Uma bicker back and forth, but Led says that they have to work as a platoon. Uma says me and Johnny on the same platoon? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's happening. Led tells him to calm down. Jacobius reintroduces himself and wonders if he should call Led Johnny. Led says, I will kill you. Cristobal and Emma are amazed that Jacobius is willing to take orders from this Johnny. Rimia wakes up in her bed to beautiful weather. Her sister tells her that breakfast is ready. She asks why she causes so much trouble for the people around her. The house changes to the jungles of Jaburo. She sees Led and Uma as her sister becomes a dark presence. She wakes up. It was all a dream. She instantly tries to get the main power reactivated. She wished she took her studies in fusion reactors seriously when back in school. Oh, samesies. Siemens and his team and Gelgoog R types notice a fleet heading their way. Minovsky particles are spreading fast. It is Neo-Zeon in an Indra and a Teve-class ship. They send out Bawoos. Even though they are technologically more advanced, Neo-Zeon is acting like a bunch of amateurs and fall into the Chimera's trap. They fire, hitting the Teve-class ship's bridge. Siemens throws the beam chakram, which we didn't talk about during our breakdown of the Type R. This is a beam disc that the Gelgoog can throw at enemies. He chucks 2 at the Bawu. They allow Neo-Zeon to escape, giving them a warning about this sector. Their cover is blown, but it was bound to happen. Back at Sweetwater, the Indra commander apologizes to Char. He was expecting an attack from the Chimera Corps sooner or later. A Chimera Corps branded shield is stuck into the Teve-class ship. To Char, the Chimera Corps was created by Cassilia explicitly to oppose him. He could use this to his advantage. We get a moment between all of the engineering leads that Hoover brought together to help get the Nakia back into the air. These engineers are specialized launch engineers that are taking great pride in this project, because this will be one of the last time large-scale funding for launches like this most likely happen. Things designed to be in space will be built in space, and everything else will have a Minovsky craft system requiring no propulsion systems. The age of launching crafts into space from Earth is over. However, the Nakia is an Argama-class ship, and the OG Argama does have a Minovsky craft system. I'm pretty sure it has one in Zionic Front as well. I assume the Nakaya's Minovsky craft system is damaged? Why else would they launch like this? Either way, these guys will have to find new work or retire after this. On the Blanc rival, Yazan and Ingrid are talking about the biosensor when the captain comes to greet them. The captain looks at the heavy Gundam and says that this is the second time that he has had a Gundam on this ship. He says the first one was a prototype from the 1 Year War. He is referring to Mudrock Gundam from Zionic Front. Yazan tells him he is a veteran like he is. He mentions after the 1 Year War, he got caught up with some idealistic people. He doesn't mention he was a Titan. Ha, idealistic people. That's putting it lightly. He says the two of them will get along, and the captain returns to the bridge. Ingrid says that adult conversations are interesting. You can assume with her cyber new type intuition, she could sense all the bullshit and lies. Back on Earth, the Nakia is 3 minutes out from launch. Hoover mentions to Dicot that this might be their last time in space. These two missed the glory days of the 1 Year War and are ready to go out like their former comrades. The Nakia launches successfully. In mission control, everyone congratulates themselves. The old Southern gentleman is ready to count his retirement funds. Rimia is finally able to get the main power back on board the ship. She now has to shut off all telemetry data so no one tracks her. Aishwarya, in the last minute, changed the coordinates of the Sangre Azul so only they know where it is. The place she sent it was Kompe Island. After the naval review of UC-0083, this area is now a debris field. Furthermore, it isn't known to the public and people won't ask too many questions for fear of opening up the conspiracy. It is the perfect place to hide the Zanzibar. Led sees Aishwarya for who she really is, a psychopath wrapped inside a walking kawaii cliche. She takes it as a compliment. Yeah, she's crazy. Besides the trajectory, she also changed the boosters to go off incrementally. They were set to fire in the opposite direction all at once at the end of its journey. All that force in the opposite direction would smush Rimia into a pancake. Ludwig doesn't sugarcoat it and lets Hoover know that his men are lacking in skills as they have been underwater for the past 10 years. Time to jump into the deep end. You get that metaphor because you're boat people. Also, Ludwig is now rocking the sleeveless Quattro look. It works for him. They think about taking back channels to the former Solomon, but Hoover thinks they should go in plain sight. They contact Oxner to try to allow them to run test exercises at Compay Island as a ruse while they search for Sangre Azul. He thinks this will leave them open to spies finding out their location fast. He needs 3 days. For now, they run test exercises and search for the Sangre Azul. They move to Compay Island's defensive perimeter. Char wants to go out to Compay Island as an excuse to test out their new Musaka-class ship. With him is Arlette Almage. If this name sounds familiar, it is because she was one of the protagonists in Twilight Axis. I should probably cover that sometime. Char asks if they painted his experimental unit red. He doesn't even care about the specs, he just cares if it's red. Horst asks why there are so many female engineers these days. She says because the men are fighting wars. At the Garden of Thorns, Siemens and his crew are informed of the training exercises happening at Compay Island. Naturally, they see through this and make preparations to head to Solomon. Hugbald suggests that they take the Skier. The Skier is a mobile turret and was designed to fill in the gaps of Zeon's weaknesses, which is range and firepower. It is designed to be operated by a Zeon mobile suit. This also showed up briefly in Unicorn. Hugbald mentions that he added spare parts that were used on Double Zeta's high mega cannon. Original Skiers fire like Double Zeta's high mega cannon and requires a long cooldown. However, Millie modified this version to lower its output so it could fire without overheating. That being said, they haven't tested it. Siemens decides to try it out. There's debris all over Compay Island, but the base is still active. Oxner gets FSS clearance from Compay Island. The Compay Island commanders think that this is fishy, so they let them enter so they can leave ASAP. I'm just gonna look the other way. Hurry up and do your thing, says every EFF commander apparently. They will begin operation in 3 hours, where they will look like they are running exercises with Ludwig's Musais. Jacobius will work on phase 2 once they find the Sangre Azul. Led tells him to babysit Uma. Cristobal is doing this because he has some relationship to Rimia, or at least the Greenwoods. However, him and Emma are going to spend this time before the mission trying to figure out if Led is really Johnny Ryden. Meanwhile, the captain of the Blanc rival notices light from Compay Island. He noticed FSS official request and thinks it is them. Yazan asks the captain of his opinion. The two men seem to be on the same page, and they change course for Compay Island. The captain gets in contact with Phileas Stream. He was a part of Eric Manfield's elite guard unit and defended against the Capitol Defense coup. For more information on Phileas, check out our coverage of the plot to assassinate Garen. It's such a good read. Leopold Feiseler smuggled them off Side 3, where they worked at Anaheim Electronics and eventually helped Karaba. Gaius Zamella is also with him, who was at Side 3 at the end of the war. They are now a part of the Blanc rival mobile suit team. The captain tells him to change course for Compay Island. Yazan preps the team for launch. He tells Ingrid that they are doing another training exercise, but this time they are using live rounds. Before starting, during a flashback with Hoover a few episodes back, we said they were on board a Salamis. This is actually a Nelson Salamis. We won't get too many opportunities to break this down. The SCV-102 Nelson is based off of the Salamis and is modified to carry mobile suits. This wasn't developed with Operation V, but rather began development around the release of the gem. It can store up to 6 gems. Only 3 of these were ever created. It has 6 megaparticle cannons, 4 twin machine guns, and 16 missile launchers. It also has an atmospheric entry capsule. Ludwig and his crew ponder about how easy it was to get back into space. Some even wonder if spending their last 10 years of their life as Zeon remnants were worth it. Ludwig doesn't regret his actions, but he wonders if fighting the battle from within would have been the right answer. He wonders if pride hurt the Space Noid cause, and it is an interesting thought experiment. It seems that the right choice is to take the Hayato approach, fighting the good fight from within. Or at least we've been shown that produces a positive outcome. Yeah, he died, but he lasted longer than most chumps. If they swallowed their pride and allowed themselves to be integrated by EFF, they can make great changes over time, especially with how spread out EFF was. Over a few generations, EFF could have been a pro-Space Noid organization, but pride is a bitch. Minovsky particles increase as they begin their training exercises. Even though the others are going to focus on finding the ship, Ludwig wants to prove himself by finding the Sangre Azul. Pride. Uma launches in his new Gyan Eos. The YMS-15E Gyan EOS is a modified version of the original Gyan, and unlike its gaudy-looking counterpart, this version is actually useful in combat. It has the same backpack as the Gelgoog high mobility type and increased firepower. Weapons include a new shield which omits the missile launcher, a beam bayonet, and the 360mm giant bazooka used by the Dom. Johnny tells Jacobius to watch after Uma while the wild child gets used to his new mobile suit. Jacobius is still rocking his Gelgoog cannon. The commanders at Kompe Island are nervous as they've seen in the past what has happened when they let their guard down. Meanwhile, the second team, consisting of Emma and Cristobal, launch. Cristobal is in a Gem 2 while Emma is in an Ewak Zac, also known as the Izac. We covered this mobile suit during our coverage of Double Zeta. She scans for the Sangre Azul. Led runs ahead to scout out the area while Jacobius takes care of the team in the training exercise. He begins sniping the gems before going after Uma. That is when a real beam blast flies by them. Yazan interrupts their search mission. Uma engages with Yazan. Kawase and Valenstein look for the Zanzibar, while Ingrid and Yazan keep FSS busy. They spread Minovsky particles to hide, but now this is biting them in the ass as they can't see the enemy. The double-edged sword of spreading Minovsky particles. Didcot aborts the training exercise, as Ludwig's team isn't trained up to battle like this. They're going to hold off on sending out any mobile suits. They will function as a recon unit for now. As Led searches for the Sangre Azul, he runs into Ingrid. She has been looking for a fight with Johnny all this time, so Led is just going to give her what she wants. The Blanc rival sends out Phileas Stream and Gaius Zamella. Phileas is piloting the Garibaldi Beta, and Gaius is in Gem 3. Phileas says that he shouldn't be out here considering he is going to be a father. He knocked up Vanessa Vermilion, who was the third member of their little trio back on Side 3. Check out the plot to assassinate Guerin for more on Vanessa. The Blanc rival just up and disappears on Kompe Island's radars. The commander believes that this is all Gop's doing, and that it most likely means that this ship has gone rogue, going to use a little bit of that plausible deniability. They aren't trying to get their hands dirty with whatever Gop is playing, but they send out a few units just to scout it out. Led notices that the debris doesn't look like anything from a typical battle. Ingrid gets mad at him for looking at the sights instead of focusing on fighting her. He doesn't have time for these games. On board the Sangre Azul, Rimia notices the ship going into combat alert. Uma and Yazan engage in close combat. Back at Sweetwater, Horst wants a ship to tail Char. He is worried about him meeting up with the Chimera Corps. Char is rocking a look that is somewhere in between Quattro and CCA Char. He realizes that the captain is nervous because he is now the supreme ruler. He is considered important cargo. An attack goes off in the distance, and they are certain it is coming from Solomon. Arlette wants Char to come down to the hangars. Emma and Cristobal move to a location 7 kilometers away from the debris field, as the Isaac isn't getting a good signal. Magellan from Kompe Island sits back and watches as the battle takes place. Ingrid is amazed by how much Led has improved since Jaburo. Rimia notices fighting in the distance. If she sends a message or even moves the ship, she will instantly be spotted. She hopes FSS is out there. Meanwhile, Char is in a red DJ. The MSK 008 DJ, Char Aznable Custom, is a gift given to Char from Koraba. It was designed to test the early phases of the psychoframe and has binders found on the Sturm Diaz. The beam rifle will go on to be the Giradoga beam rifle. Other weapons include a beam cannon with a 4.2 megawatt output, 60mm Vulcans, a beam pistol used by the Rick Diaz, and a shield which equips a Sturmfaust. Of course, this unit is painted red. With Arlette is Danton, also from Twilight Axis, who isn't even going to try to convince Char not to be the test pilot like she is. She mentions that the cockpit of this unit has the T-shaped material Nanai has been working on. This integrates the Psychomu system at the microscopic level, and he has a biosensor as a backup. This seems to be a first crack at the psychoframes. By the time we get to Moon Gundam, psychoframes will be completely integrated, which is only a year or two away. Danton wished he would have remained missing during the Grips conflict for Arlette's sake. Danton knows moving forward for Char means Amado Ray. Danton seems to understand that Char plays with girls' hearts while running off to be with his man. Rimia is trying to figure out the old one-year war equipment. She is able to get radars up and running and notices the ships in the distance. They are FSS. The Kompe Island team notices the Musais widening their formation and not engaging. They realize that they are looking for something. Ludwig was able to pick up a signal that is sent out every 5 minutes that just says Rimia here. They think they have found her. They also notice the signals coming from Kompe Island. It seems they are intercepting both laser and radio waves. They are monitoring their exercises intently. Ludwig needs to get into contact with Emma in the Isaac without Compay Island noticing. He remembers he could use oral signals. There seems to be some type of metaphor or meme or some type of coded message Zeon used back during the 1-year war. Ludwig tells Emma the wind will soon blow. She immediately understood this and knows that the Zanzibar has been found. The Compay Island commanders intercept the message between Ludwig and Emma. They play it over and over again before noticing a slight hesitation. Something doesn't seem right. Top that with the moose eyes staying in search formation while retreating. Compay Island still doesn't know what to make of this. One commander says he doesn't quite understand, but he says that his judgment saved him during the naval review, so he will trust him now. They put their focus on watching the moose eyes as they think they found something, though they still don't know what it is. Just imagine being these Compay Island commanders. What the hell are these guys looking for? Why are they pretending to fight each other? What is going on right now? Ingrid is unable to keep up with Led. He gets the drop on her, causing her to crash into debris. He is reading her every movement. Also, everyone gets way too turned on while fighting Led. What's up with that? Ludwig moves into the Minovsky field. They are certain that Compay Island is going to be onto them soon. His instincts are right, as Compay commanders have found the location of whatever they are looking for, and send someone out to find just what it is. Cristobal thinks that everything from the 1-year war seems to come back to bite them. But Emma never expected life to be a picnic. Char launches finally in the DJ. He launches in the direction of the sun so he won't be spotted. The captain picks up the enemy attacks not too far out in front of them. He tells Char not to launch, but oh, there he goes. Danton, expecting this would happen, launches after him in a Sturm Diaz. The Musaka heads into battle as well. Emma and Cristobal make it to the location of the Sangre Azul when a Salamis comes barreling towards them. They were trying to figure out the best way to communicate their location. But now that they are discovered, the cat's out of the bag, so they fire flares, letting everyone know. Led is fighting Ingrid, Uma and Jacobius are fighting Yazan, and Hoover is fighting Gaius. That leaves Dicot and the Blanc rival to help out Emma and Cristobal. I like that they don't even consider the moose eyes. Nah, let them hang back. Uma doesn't need any support from Jacobius anymore and reminds him why they came here in the first place. Jacobius rushes towards the Sangre Azul. Everyone descends on the Zanzibar's location. The Magellan can't kill Federation friendlies and just have to wait until they get word from their higher-ups. Jacobius makes it to Emma. This is really cool. Jacobius shoots a link cable and connects to the Isaac. This extends Jacobius' sensor range, effectively making him a sniper god. The Blanc rival notices the new Musaka class approaching at great speeds. They begin moving, once again exposing them to radar. Meanwhile, Rimia is watching along, hoping she doesn't catch a stray beam blast. Ingrid is outmatched and needs to get out in the open. That is when she senses something so strong that she ignores Led and chases it. She says the red comet is here. This random Magellan captain is hilarious. He says something's just not right. Things are going way too well, and nothing ever goes well in my life. What have you seen, random captain guy? As support comes to help the Magellan, one of the backup ships goes down. Then two, the Magellan captain notices a red mobile suit. Char finds the Sangre Azul. He notices that there is just one person on board the Zanzibar. On board the Musaka, Arlette wonders why Char is taking this test so seriously, before she realizes that it is actually her and the crew that are being tested. Jacobius fires at Char. He dodges and returns fire. Jacobius is amazed because he is using a sniper unit, but Char was able to almost snipe him with a regular beam rifle. The Compay crew analyze the mobile suit flight patterns and realize that it is Char Aznable. The commander knows the top brass would never believe that the Red Comet is still alive. Rather than say it is Char, they simply tell the Federation that a ghost of Solomon has attacked. That is something that'll make the top brass's ears pucker. EFF will never believe it is Char, just blame it on Gato again. Cristobal says screw it and tries to board the Sangre Azul. The Isaac does some jamming while Jacobius fires, but it isn't good enough to stop Char. He goes toe-to-toe with the DJ, and Char destroys his gym. Don't worry, the cockpit is okay. That is when Char notices Ingrid's Gundam. Cristobal's unit is badly injured, but the idiot is remaining on the battlefield and no one's retreating. Ingrid is certain that the red mobile suit is Char Aznable. Jacobius hears this and it reminds him of the past. Jacobius speaks to a man named Hughes Marquine Kelvin in regards to Char's new type unit. They talk about how this unit is to be the future of the military, but as an old type, he wonders where they are heading. He then brings to light the true purpose of the Chimera Corps to Jacobius. They're designed to take down Char in case he rebels. He then merely utters Johnny's name. Jacobius has brought up the story of the mythical beast in the past. He says that the mythical beast appears whenever he appears, referring to Johnny Ryden. He wonders if he is the key to stopping Char. Jacobius begins working with his former Chimera Corps teammates. He gets Ingrid to work together with him, while Emma is still scouting and sending back data to the Nakaya. Cristobal is dead in the water, so he heads to the Sangre Azul. Jacobius acts as a commander. He exudes confidence and his former teammates listen to his commands to help take down Char. While Char is fighting, Danton is kicking back collecting data. Meanwhile, Hoover notices Lead flying out into the debris field. Hoover tries to contact Lead, but his laser comms lose direct connection. He tells Dicot to go faster, but they have to take a different route around the debris field. Cristobal makes it to the Sangre Azul while Char and Ingrid continue their melee battle. Yazan gets real close to Char. He realized that Ingrid called this man Char with no hesitation. Yazan is very much locked in and focused on Ingrid's new type abilities, so much so that he uses Ingrid's reactions as a litmus test for how he should react in situations. This is the closest we have seen an old type keep up with a new type. Yazan recognizes that if you can't be the fastest, focus on how the fastest person reacts. And for him, that is Ingrid. Simply following Ingrid's reactions seems to allow him to keep up with new types. Yazan wants to know if he was the man who piloted the shiny gold machine back in the day. Of course, he is referring to Quattro's Hyakushiki. Wonder what happened to that guy. He probably hasn't forgotten about the death of his friends Ramses and Dunkel. These were his Humbrabi wingmen in Gundam Zeta. They were barely in the show, but had a more prominent appearance in the Zeta compilation movies. His prototype beam rifle is overheating way too quickly. Cristobal is able to open a hatch in the Sangre Azul. He is amazed that Rimia brought back power to the ship. Rimia gets a notification on the airlock being open. She brings up the camera where she notices Cristobal. The Musaka captain notices that there is a Federation fleet approaching them. Neo Zeon launches their mobile suits. The Musaka makes it to the battle. Char wants his team to buy them a little more time. He actually isn't after the Sangre Azul and is just trying to prove something. Danton notes that he has never seen Char this happy before. Danton realizes that Arlette was trying to give the captain this moment. Siemens and his team notices the fighting happening at Compe Island. He is frustrated by what his teammates are doing, as he thought they were just running training exercises. Siemens wonders if he should go help his wife and comrades. He asks Millie if the skier is ready, but she is going to need more time. Siemens and the gang decide to launch to help Emma and Cristobal. On the Sangre Azul, Cristobal and Rimia meet. We flash back to the one-year war on Earth. Cristobal is a part of Roy Greenwood's mobile suit team when he gets word that he is transferring to the Chimera Corps. He tells him that space is a lot more vast than the desert. Cristobal zones out for a second, but then he comes to help Rimia. He assumes control of the helm while Rimia focuses on the rest of the ship. Yazan is still wondering if this is the guy from Jaburo back during the Grips conflict. It does seem like the Grips conflict was a long time ago, but it was only 3 years ago. He makes some wild maneuvers to give his overheating beam rifle some time to cool down. But Jacobius is watching with his eagle eyes and notices what he is doing. As Yazan and Char melee fight, an explosion goes off. It is Uma Lightning and his Gyan Eos. He finally caught up to Jacobius. Uma is able to get Yazan to help FSS and the Chimera Corps to fight against Char. The battle wages on as the Musaka makes it to the battlefield. A random Compe Island Salamis, which was sent out to scout, has the opportunity to seize the Sangre Azul, but the captain recognizes that this battle is above his pay grade, and he says that it would be embarrassing for them to survive the one-year war, only to die at some local dispute. He turns the ship around and heads back to Compe Island. As he heads back, he says that the Federation just needs to think they are working. They don't actually have to work. This captain knows his way around Federation bureaucracy. Rimia and Cristobal are going to have to vent the ship as it is overloaded by the nuclear reactor. Once they vent heat, they will be seen, so they will have to activate the thrusters and take off instantly, or they will be spotted. The Chimera Corps notices this and moves into action. Jacobius tells Emma to guide the Sangre Azul out of the range of fire. If Char chases her, Jacobius will respond. Uma and Ingrid tag team Char, but he is able to hold his own. The two try to hold them off until Lead gets there. Char tells Danton to fire off a flare. They group up and head towards Char. Meanwhile, Rimia and Cristobal are ready to fire the thrusters. They fire them off and slowly try to move outside of the Solomon area. Compe Island commanders notices that the Sangre Azul changed trajectory and is leaving the area. They send out more ships to chase. Char damages Ingrid's heavy Gundam. Kawase and Valenstein make their way to Yazan's location. He tells his wingmen to get Ingrid out of here as she is injured, though she's hesitant to leave. Normally, Yazan would just kill anyone who gets in his way, but he has to protect the princess for Gop's sake. She wants to continue, so this is the only warning Yazan gives her. He leaves injured members of his pack to fend for themselves. She decides to listen and head back. Rimia sends Emma the Zanzibar's identification code so allies can recognize the ship. Char goes after the Sangre Azul. Uma chases him. However, it was a distraction. He changes direction and blitzes towards the Musai. Ludwig left himself open. However, before Char could take down Ludwig, Led finally comes in. Yazan wonders why he didn't sink it. It seems that Char is just doing the bare minimum to show Forrest that he tried this option. He really wants to drop an asteroid on Earth. Ludwig wants to move in regardless of their lack of skills, but he is told to retreat by Led. Xeon remnants, man. Their first instincts are to always go for the suicide play. Emma has escorted the Sangre Azul to a safe distance. Communication becomes spotty via laser comms due to the debris, so they are most likely about to lose communication with the others and will be left to fend for themselves. Led tells Uma to clear a path and head back to the Nikaya. He also tells Ludwig and his Musai crew to meet up with the Sangre Azul and to stop trying to kill themselves. Led and Yazan eventually agree to work together to take down the Red Comet. He tells Led that FSS is footing the bill for his services. Char notices that they are starting to work together. Meanwhile, Simmons and their crew head towards Compay Island and start to get a handle on what exactly is going on. Siemens is on standby, recognizing that he can't run from his past. He is reminded of a man named Hugh Markeen Kelvin. Remember, Siemens' crew is in possession of the original Chimera. They are living under the shadows of their old commander Hughes. He has popped up in a flashback but hasn't served a purpose until now. Gannon says that this must be the Zabi's instrument of revenge. Myers says that time will surely keep moving forward until, at last, we arrive at the final day in history. These are the words of Hughes, and Siemens wonders if Johnny and Asia were right. Well, that's ominous. Which one of these three are gonna die? Siemens, Myers, and Gannon launch. Uma continues towards the Nikaya while Jacobius takes aim and fires at the Musaka. On board the Musaka, Arlette notices the precision shot that just took out their main cannon. She tells the captain to quickly take evasive maneuvers. He does so just in time, and the bridge barely misses Jacobius's second shot. Jacobius wonders if there is a new type on board the ship. He gets in closer where he is met with dancing. Led and Char continue their dance. The Red Comet tells Johnny to join him. Led gets another flashback of Johnny Ryden's memories. It was a time where Johnny met Char during the 1-year war. Johnny was trained to take down the Red Comet. Char suggests that he use those skills to help Char rather than fight him. Led gets another one of Johnny's memories, this time of Asia. He hears on the radio to get a hold of himself. That is when a fuel tank comes barreling in towards the two fighting. They get out of the way before it goes up in flames. Simmons' team just gets a short message informing them that they need help. They notice a mobile suit with the Sangre Azul. Simmons is certain that it is Emma. EFF is starting to follow the Sangre Azul as they make it deeper into the shoal zone. They will most likely try to reclaim it. Siemens and his team have to stop them before EFF gets to the Zanzibar. However, Siemens doesn't know this for certain. This is all assumptions based off of the minimal data they were given. Going in blind is never fun. Regardless, they know that EFF will get there before they do. The only thing they could do is use the skewer to fire from a long distance. This would be easy if it were Jacobius, but Simmons isn't the best sniper. He asks Millie how many shots he has. She says theoretically he has 5 shots, but doesn't recommend pushing it past 3 shots. Wait, did that just say theoretically? Siemens takes aim and fires. It is going to take a while to reach them. The megaparticle beam helps Ludwig know which direction to head in the debris field. Since he fired from so far away, the EFF fleet can see it coming and can dodge. It is designed to be a distraction to slow them down. The EFF can only see the beam blast and not exactly who fired it. It works as it makes EFF question whether to go after the Sangre Azul. They decide to retreat, but EFF also decides to stop playing this game with the others, pretending to do military training exercises. Compay Island raises their defenses and sends a blanketed message to everyone telling them to vacate the area. Char gets intel about the Musaka. He decides to retreat to help his ship. That is when he activates his Psychoman. His speed and reaction time are too much for Led to handle. Char slices off the Gelgoog's limbs just leaving the cockpit. Yazan is watching and notices that Char is nothing like last time they fought. Led is left stunned by Char's power. Didcot notices the beam blast and wonders where Hoover is. They're heading towards the Sangre Azul and the Isaac, but ultimately they don't have a final destination. Yazan's unit was critically damaged during an encounter with Char, which I didn't really touch on last time. Phileas Stream comes in to pick him up. He thinks that the Red Comet he went up against is the real deal. As he gets into Phileas's cockpit, he tells him to grab the black box on his mobile suit as they may have received some interesting data. They head back to the Pegasus-class ship. The captain of the Blanc rival contacts Gop. He is worried about Ingrid, who is currently on standby. The captain relates as he has a niece that he too cares about. Gop decides that it is time for him to face this head on. It is time for Gop to head into space. Gop entices the captain to stay in the military via Federation welfare programs. He seems like he has seen some shit and could use a few more vacation days. How'd you lose that eye, buddy? They will meet Gop at Luna 2. Before setting course towards the asteroid, they go to pick up Yazan from the battlefield. Back on the Masaka-class ship, Arlette chastises Char, telling him that he broke it once again. Char says, I do two things, break mobile suits and break women's hearts. It's that wicked life he lives, man.
Amuro.
When he activates the psychoframe, there are a lot of buffers to allow the pilot to automate a lot of the flying to not put stress on the machine. But Char is a psychopath and turned all that off. However, dude could stop on a dime and can take 5 Gs to the face without passing out. He's got talent, you can't deny that. But when doing this, it causes great stress, requiring a lot of parts to be replaced. Char leaves the handling of things with Anaheim Electronics and Von Braun to her and Danton, while he heads to Granada. She realizes that his mission pertains to Amada Ray.
Amuro.
At this point, Anaheim Electronics is making mobile suits for both Neo Zeon and Londo Bell. Char also gives approval for Arlette to work on a new mobile suit. She tells Danton that it derives from the Gyaradoga line of mobile suits, and she is calling it the Sazabi. Oxner and Gop meet at the spaceport on Earth. They're playing their little games with one another as they race for Minarete. But currently, Oxner's men have the Sangre Azul and are ahead of the pack. The goal of humanity when moving out into space was freedom, but Gop finds it ironic as the space noids are confined in a colony or a spaceship. Oxner takes a more optimistic approach, just like Zeon in many ways. Or at least he recognizes that it is the right approach. He also says he isn't the good guy here, and he too is just an opportunist. Remember, neither of these men's intentions are anything other than feeding into the oligarchy that comes to be during Mafty's rebellion. Gop's plan is ready, and he takes his leave. But before he goes, he says that everyone was surprised to hear that he is going into space. Everyone except for him. He bows and simply says, anyone who knows of your past should feel surprised. Gop smiles and makes his leave. On the Nikaya, Uma never thought that the Chimera and an EFF ship would be side by side. Didcot mentions that things have changed. It isn't about Zeon or EFF. It is just about fighting for a future. After losing half of humanity during the 1-year war, people just want to see people survive. They get into contact with the Chimera. Siemens and his men head towards the Argama-class ship. Hoover comes onto the bridge and says that being led by the Chimera is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of once-in-a-lifetime chances in this manga. Ingrid is watching the battle data from the previous fight with Char. Yazan comes in and asks her if she is afraid. She is, and wonders if Yazan feels the same way. He says that during the 1-year war, there was nothing but fear. It is like seeing an old friend. It actually turns him on. Yazan forgets that he is talking to a little girl. They approach Luna 2. Both their mobile suits are wrecked, so Ingrid will have to play suck-up with her father to distract him while he asks for new mobile suits. I'm pretty sure he would just give them to you. Char makes it back to Sweetwater. He isn't going to attend the meeting with the Neo Zeon higher-ups and is planning on taking a few ace pilots to handle business with the Chimera Corps. He tells Horst that unfortunately, he isn't going to be the leader that he wants him to be, as his heart is still in being a pilot. This is of course a response to telling Horst that he will finally stop piloting after the event that leads to his death. He wants Horst to be the leader of Neo Zeon for now. It is vague, but I assume it is a role in Parliament, similar to Side 3 or the Federation. He heads out. Horst recognizes that he won't stop fighting as a pilot until he fights Amada once again.
Amuro.
The Chimera Corps all flee to the Garden of Thorns and regroup. Rimia and Led finally are reunited. She thinks that he is going to make fun of her, but he is just glad that she made it back safely. Emma is watching as the two fall in love, but then Simmons gives her this sketchy look. He's like, girl, what have you and Cristobal been up to? Didcot hates all this young love, but Hoover tells him to speak for himself, as he is young at heart. Hoover has too much energy. He needs to take it down a notch. There is a lot of damage to the mobile suits from their encounter. Didcot says that he only said he would pilot the Nikaya. The mobile suits are all on Hoover. Better use that FSS money. Hugbald comes over asking for a moment of their time. On Luna 2, Ingrid gives Gop a big hug. Alright, you guys want some water or some orange? Oh man, I love orange juice. Whoa. I didn't say anything about orange juice. Hugbald tells Hoover about the Garden of Thorns and how it was Delaz's base of operation, and also how the public doesn't know about this place yet. Of course, Hoover was somewhat privy to this info. He wants Hoover to work together with them. Anaheim Electronics is putting a lot of money into restoring the area. Soon, this could house 700 people. They want to help Hoover in achieving his goal, which makes me believe he wants Minarete to help grow the Garden of Thorns. They have lost communication, but were able to receive a message from Oxner that says, "I'll see you guys at the Garden of Thorns." They are amazed that Oxner is leaving Earth. Like Gop, the chairman is heading to Von Braun first. Most people always have a layover on the moon before heading out to the colonies. Someone should go pick him up. They could also have any parts for repair from the moon, and it can be sent back within 2 days. Hugbald tells them that Anaheim Electronics helped both the Titans and AU during the Greps conflict. Because of their support from not only Remnants, but also the Republic of Zeon on Side 3, they were able to evolve their tech via their satellite office in Granada. He says that even though they have been in the business of making mobile suits, they aren't diversifying mobile suit production. Everything has kind of become streamlined, and because of that, there is a standardization in parts. This allowed people to mass produce mobile suits at great speeds, but it comes at a cost at outsourcing parts of the production pipeline to someone else. This makes it hard to make one-off mobile suits. It is like trying to manufacture something in America today. The mechanisms at place to make that happen no longer exist because it is now outsourced. On top of that, you get a lot of trade secrets being sold left and right. All this to say the military-industrial complex is hard to keep up with. Zeon had almost a 10-year head start in mobile suit development, but one thing that FSS and EFF never seemed to focus on was the mobile worker. Most of what Zeon did was focused in the private sector. Even this manga, which followed Led as he investigates mobile suits. We only focused on the weapons of war. It's time for Anaheim Electronics to pivot, and with the help of Minarete, they are looking to get into the business making colonies. The Garden of Thorns is located in the Shoal Zone that was once Side 5. In UC0096, so too is Industrial 7 inside the Shoal Zone. Are you seeing what's happening here? We are starting to see Anaheim Electronics make moves into a space which we will see fleshed out in Gundam Unicorn. It seems the birthplace of Industrial 7 started with the Garden of Thorns. Meanwhile, in Von Braun City, Oxner has arrived. The Chimera Corps runs training simulations fighting against Char based off of the battle data from their previous encounter. They're struggling to keep up with Simulator Char. Rimia says that based off the battle data, Char's mobile suit was injured, so he wasn't even at his full potential. And the damage was self-inflicted by wear and tear, so the enemy never even got a hit on him. That is when Gerald Sakai appears. Gerald Sakai is one of the 4 aces from Brave Soldiers in the Sky. The aces consisted of Gerald Sakai, Rory Greenwood, Rimia's father, Shin Matsunaga, and Johnny Ryden. He has been laying low as a baker recently. He is also a former Chimera Corps member. Uma is the one who contacted him. He looks at Led and says, so he is the one. For Rimia, he will always be Led Wayline. Jacobius tells Led if he is really Johnny Ryden, then he must lead them. The Chimera Corps is together once again. Hugbald wants Rimia to help them on the Chimera Corps MS development project and help them with their next battle. He wants her to head to Granada for procurement. In Granada, Anaheim Electronics has a second facility where the Rick Diaz was developed, and most of the AUG stuff. Hoover has already approved a budget. Rimia agrees on one condition. She wants to bring her sister, Amaria Greenwood, with her. Luna 2. Ingrid and Gop's team are getting repairs on their mobile suits. Ingrid watches when Gop comes in to rap with her in his super cool hoodie. He is just like all the youths. He says, "What's wrong, Skibbity Toilet?" She wonders if he would ever put himself on the line to fight. She is thinking of her fight with Char, which seemed to have really gotten to her. He tells her not to worry about him, Skibbity Toilet. She tells him to stop talking like that and to take off the hoodie. As a gift to calm her nerves, he gives her the burst liner to use with her heavy Gundam. The burst liner is a turret designed as a part of the SWS program, intended to be used with the RX-78 line. There is little data on a supposed North Pole class ship that was designed to carry full armor and heavy Gundams into a battle against Granada. However, there's not too much on this. This was built before the subflight system was created, and the base jabber far outclasses this unit. However, its single megaparticle cannon does come in handy and can take out a space carrier in a single shot. She isn't really happy about it and wonders about Yazan. They unload his new mobile suit. Yazan comes in and notices that it is a Gundam Mark II. Let's just say Yazan has experience with this unit whooping his ass constantly. He goes, nope, nuh-uh, not doing it. Gop says that he went out of his way to paint it his personal colors, which happens to be blue and green, just like his Humbrabi in Zeta. It is referred to as the Vasuki Custom. Ingrid laughs at him and says, isn't it ironic? However, this is the best Gop could do, and it will take some time to get a new Gem Knight Seeker. Those were rare, and you ruined it. It looks like he has no choice. Gop asks if she wants a full armor Gundam, but she is cool with her heavy Gundam. Gotta mention all those MSVs. Ditkat and Hoover meet with Oxner. They are about to do something unheard of, but they are all just glad they don't have desk jobs. Oxner looks out to the Garden of Thorns. Are those Draw Cs being used as mobile workers? Neat. Meanwhile, Gop is meeting with the AE accountant Hugbald. They are the ones who supplied the Mark II to Gop. They are close to making a full armor version of the Mark II. The original MSV shows the full armor II as being operated by the AU during the Grips conflict, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. He understands how Anaheim Electronics plays, and he wonders what's the catch. Hugbald hands him a contract regarding what they need from Gop. He simply says that he could do sections 2 and 3. 1 and 4 he needs time to think it over, and section 5 is a no-go. They don't really tell the reader what they are. Hugbald mentions others. Gop continues on to see the Strategic Naval Research Institute, SNRI. AE seems to be worried about their presence. At this time, they haven't built a single mobile suit, but he notes that that could change, and in the future, indeed, it does so. It seems to be true what we thought last episode. Anaheim Electronics does indeed want to get out of the mobile suit game as they transition into making colonies. But as they make this transition, they still want to retain their government contracts for as long as possible. Dob wonders why he would ever give intel that could potentially destabilize the current economy. It is Anaheim Electronics that wants to help bring stability. He tells Gop that AE is currently divided into the Von Braun camp and the Granada camp. Although one corporation, these two entities don't share their trade secrets with one another, because one side helps EFF and the other side helps Zeon, and each side remains ignorant of each other. Gop understands this and wonders what side Hugbald is on. He thinks that he is currently working both sides. But really, he just wonders if Char is working with Granada. Gop could see through him, it seems, as he ponders what will happen to AE in the future. He still doesn't say exactly what he wants in exchange for the full armor Gundams. He tells him, however, that Johnny Ryden has regained consciousness. This is all he needs to hear and takes his leave. Ingrid wonders if he is a spy, but Gop says he is merely a messenger. He seems to be more concerned with Johnny Ryden than he is with Minarete. On Site 3, a young girl named Amaria is looking out at the colony. That is when Leopold Fieseler comes in. He is the main character of the plot to assassinate Garen and a former Zeon investigator. He has a favor to ask her. She asks about her sister Rimia. Amaria tells him that she is an engineer with FSS. One thing to note is that she is referring to Leopold as father. It appears as though the Sangre Azul was something that the Fieseler family looked after for years, and that it isn't Zeon's property. Leo says Amaria is smart and thanks Miss Elsie. So it does seem that Leo and Elsie are together, since FSS seems to be in control of the Zanzibar now. Amaria is going to be Leopold's eyes and ears. He has also heard rumors that a third party was at the battle. Amaria knows Haman's Neo-Zeon remnants are active, but he is of course talking about Char Aznable. Leo mentions that the Sangre Azul is also just a ship that leads you to another ship, and tells her about Minarete and Ashtaroth. Even he doesn't know what it is, and simply says it is something that could change Universal Century. He tells her that the person who created this weapon was Hugh Marquine Kelvin, and that this weapon can't fall into the wrong hands. Char becoming a third party in this race has got Leopold very worried. We learned that after the war, it appears that the Fieseler family adopted thousands of war orphans, including the Greenwoods. He says that Amaria doesn't have to call him father. If anything urgent happens, he wants her to bring Rimia back to Side 3. She says that for helping him out, she has to get a meeting with Elsie. He teases her, saying that they are similar, because they are both a pain in his ass. Ludwig's FSS team is scouting the outskirts of the Garden of Thorns in their new Nemos. They notice a Zeon ship nearby. It happens to be Char's Neo-Zeon in a Musai Kai. Ludwig fires to scare them out of the sector. The Musai is trying to figure out how to break through their defenses. They send out mobile suits. Oxner meets with FSS and the Chimera Corps. The first part of their plan is to find Minarete and bring it back here. Led butts in and asks, what exactly is it? He says that it is something that can change everything. Oxner says it is the key to bring back Johnny Ryden. But then Led goes, yeah, but what does that exactly mean? Finally, someone not speaking in riddles. Oxner says it is the Zabi's tool of revenge. Led goes, yeah, but what does that mean? Be more specific. He finally stops beating around the bush and says that Minarete is a ship used to design and test many of the Chimera Corps weapons. It was also a huge server farm which holds a lot of the Zabi family secrets. Back then, the Chimera Corps' goal was to be an old type group that could take out new types, along with guarding Zeon's treasures. Kill two birds with one stone. Uma and Ingrid were too young, but some actually know of the secrets. After the war, FSS was created to uncover the secrets of the Chimera, which is why Scott is on the FSS team. He mentions that he only knew of its existence through Hugh Kelvin. Jacobius has no idea of this, however. Led asks, what are the contents of the Zabi weapon? It is a biochemical weapon that can wipe out an entire ecosystem. We learn this from a flashback from Xian's perspective, but FSS hasn't been caught up on everything. Gerald Sakai mentions that if this is confirmed, that means that the Ground Zero incident was real and it wasn't just rumors. This is referring to Mobile Suit Gundam Ground Zero Rise from the Ashes, where Ashtaroth was first mentioned in Universal Century. We really need to get back to that story. At the time, it wasn't considered against the Antarctic Treaty because it wasn't a nuke, and the treaty wasn't amended to other weapons of mass destruction yet. If this gets to Earth, it will become worldwide, and destroying it is near impossible. However, what's more important is the next step. Ashtaroth is designed to be used on Earth, but it must first be injected into a colony via a warhead. All of the people who knew how to do this injection probably are no longer alive and most likely died with Hugh Kelvin. Led asks how to unlock it. Oxner says with Johnny Ryden, specifically his biometrics. There were 3 people who could activate the system: Hugh Markeen Kelvin, Asia Fellow, and Johnny Ryden. Led asks what then. He says he will hold on to this power, not for power's sake, but to ensure it doesn't fall into the hands of Char Aznable. He doesn't want to leave the fate of the world to him. But in order for that to happen, Johnny Ryden has to return. At Granada, Arlette and Danton are going through Anaheim Electronics archives. She is working on the Sazabi for Char, but they also need to focus on modification for the DJ. Danton wonders if she is going to visit Dr. Nagano, but he doesn't have the time. Remember, Dr. Nagano was in charge of the Delta program, and in my own personal headcanon, he and Dr. Namikar totally banged. Danton doesn't seem to understand Char and calls him a person who is into little girls. But Arlette seems to get it. He is clearly compensating for the fact that his mother was taken from him at a young age. So he desires the attention of women. He is looking for a mommy figure, or perhaps someone who resembles his sister. Danton wonders what exactly is her relationship with the Colonel. She says that she is a little sister looking out for her brother. If you watch Twilight Access, Arlette was in love with Char, but she fell into a depression after learning of his relationship with Lala. She was a part of the Flanagan Institute in the early years, and has gotten over her complicated relationship with him. Ultimately, she knows that Char is using her, but she is kind of okay with it at the moment. As they talk about Char, Arlette gets a new type flash and can hear someone else. It is Rimia meeting with her sister Amaria. She knows their intentions and knows they have something to do with Johnny Ryden. For now, they head off to Von Braun to grab some souvenirs. At Granada, Rimia, Amaria, and a few Granada AE engineers are at work designing a mobile suit that can keep up with Char's DJ. We touched on this briefly in the past, but the reason it can be hard in the UC90s to create mobile suits is because of the standardizations of parts. Do you need something heat resistant? Maybe cold resistant? How many G-forces does this mobile suit need to achieve? What about radiation resistance? You don't want to end up with radiation sickness like the people of Moon Moon. Check out our coverage of Moon Moon to see how 1 out of 10 people are destined to die on Moon Moon because of this. Because of their variability, there are over 10,000 parts that can be combined together to create a mobile suit. But once combined, you must test for said compatibility. If you're a software developer, this is familiar to you. You write your code alone, and then you conduct integration testing to see how it works as a whole. More or less, this is the same for mobile suit development. This process is called Mobile Suit Variation, or MSV. In the real world, MSV is just a way for Bandrise to show off its extra designs for a price. This manga gave the concept of MSV its own backstory within Universal Century. Mind blown. However, this does have a downfall. Making one-off bespoke mobile suits will become very difficult, which is the mobile suit Rimia and the team are trying to make. Randiger Heavy Industries will also come across the same problem in the UC-120s when they try to make their own bespoke mobile suits. Mr. Ida, who is helping out with the team, mentions that the DJ is derived from the Rick Diaz. Also, Ida is rocking UC-50s fashion in the 90s. Bro, a turtleneck with bleach blonde hair and a jet black beard? That certainly is a choice. He says that Hugbald knows a thing or two about the Rick Diaz, suggesting that he was a part of the team that worked with Char and the AU back during Grips. Specifically, a part of the Gamma Gundam project, which became the Rick Diaz. Ida says that 40% of the parts on their new mobile suit requires bespoke parts. Rimia says that using 40% brand new parts will take 6 months to produce the mobile suit. They have to reject this design. Hugbald's plan B is to get them access to a Gundam for them to modify, but Rimia seems destined to get this right. Hugbald says maybe this will help. He pulls up some Neo Zeon mobile suit data. Up on the screen is 6 mobile suits. We got the Rick Diaz, the Zaku III, the Dreisen, the Baowu, the SZA, my favorite Wu-Tang member, and the Dovin Wolf. Hugbald says that Anaheim Electronics worked out a deal with Neo Zeon to mass produce these 6 units. Haman was planning on total world domination. Too bad she was taken out by the AUG before that happened. And by the AUG, I really mean 6 children who stole a ship. Haman was thinking very far ahead. There are no datasets for variability with these mobile suits, but Rimia can work with this. She looks closely at the Dolphin Wolf, aka the AMX 014, so we will learn that this mobile suit is designed off of a Gelgoog, aka the MS-14J. I feel like this should have been a picture of the Gelgoog, but the writer mistook the MS-14J and the AMX-014. Cristobal is on a shuttle meeting with Rimia at Granada. He thinks back to the One-Year War and Roy Greenwood. Roy looks at a picture of Amaria and Rimia and gets nostalgic. He thinks that in this climate, he is never going to see them again. He makes Cristobal promise to give him his regards if he doesn't make it back. He thinks that his commander is being dramatic, but he was right and he never returned, and now Cristobal has to fulfill that promise. Cristobal is going to be the test pilot for the new mobile suit. Led is too busy handling a different part of the mission. He wants to say something to Rimia, but he is hesitant. That is when Amaria comes over and introduces herself. She remembers back in the day, her father would send letters to them, and he would mention Cristobal many times. Rimia doesn't remember any of this. Amaria says after all this is done, he must come pay them a visit as she has so many questions to ask him. Cristobal didn't have to say a thing. Amaria acknowledged his feelings and knew exactly what to say to him. They upload the latest build on the mobile suit and begin their testing. Meanwhile, a Musai Kai class ship called the Minarete is scouting nearby. Cristobal launches in a new model, the Gelgoog Verex. The MS-14J-BR Gelgoog Verex is a prototype designed by Rimia Greenwood, FSS, and Anaheim Electronics Granada Division. This is made using Gundam Gamma alloy and has giant booster binders similar to the Gelgoog. Each binder has 3 verniers. It is equipped with the Gelgoog's beam rifle, which doubles as a grenade launcher, the Yagdoga Gatling gun, a beam Naginata, an 8-tube missile pod, and a shield. Each Verex will be modified for each of its pilots. His mission for the simulation is to take out an Alexandria-class ship using a long-range rifle. 3 mobile suits defend the ship. Cristobal is able to swiftly take them out. He notes that there is a short cooldown on this mobile suit. He goes in and takes out the Alexandria-class ship, UC-0079. On the Chimera, Hugh Markeen Kelvin tells a young Uma that the war is about to be over. Though Zeon as a whole may fail, they must succeed. Hugh looks out to Minarete. Their goal, if all things fall apart, is to ensure that their people make it to Axis. He says that Caecilia's mission is being obfuscated by someone. Uma thinks that it is Char, but Hugh tells him that it is none other than Garen Zabi. He tells Uma to keep that to himself and to not tell even Ingrid. He says after this is all over, he will be long gone, but he is giving Uma access to something called package number 6 that is located in his room. He is counting on him to carry out the mission once he is gone. In the present, Uma looks at an access key and says he isn't a kid anymore and will fulfill his mission. Uma seems to be hiding something from the rest of the team. Bob and Aishwarya are sharing some labs with PMC Themis when they get a message that they will meet up with Minarete in 10 days. Also, Bob says that Aishwarya looks cute. She's also still talking about chocolates. I think that's all this girl talks about. She likes sweets because she's a girl. Ida and another engineer talk to Amaria in the break room. He mentions that the 2 of them used to work for Char back in the day. The 2 were former Zeon soldiers as well. One day, Char came to them with a new form of Gundarium alloy. This was Gundarium Gamma. If you watched our coverage of Char's deleted affair and Zeta Define, this was mainly due to the genius that is Sumeri Hongo. With this, they created Gamma Gundam, which then evolved into the Rick Diaz. The development history of the Gamma Gundam is similar to the new Gelgoog Verex, as it too has Gundarium Gamma. Maria asks about the new verniers on the Verex. The name Verex comes from the thrusters created initially for GPO-2. Of course, none of this mobile suit technology was ever disclosed. I guess they could just slip that tech into something new and call it theirs? That's sneaky. Ida also mentions that due to the extensive testing done by the test pilot, they were able to iterate on thrusters faster than usual, which is why it makes for the perfect verniers for Verex. Of course, we know Char's test pilot is Danton. Throughout these past 2 chapters, people have been hinting that Char's test team is on a whole different level. This is absolutely in part due to Arlette and Danton making such a great team. This long-winded story is all for Ida to say that he is certain that the DJ pilot is most certainly Char. No one told him. He could just tell from from the mobile suit development alone. He looks at Amaria, then pulls out an audio bug that was planted by her from under the table. He speaks directly into the bug and says he is not at liberty to say, but in a backhanded way says that Char is still alive. They thank Amaria for her time and the engineers leave the break room. I'm sorry for making fun of your fashion. That was a pretty badass move. Now, Leopold Feiseler knows for sure that Char is alive. Led, Jacobius, Hugball, Simmons, Oxner, and Hoover are in the Sangre Azul. They look at a map which looks like a planetarium show. Even with the Sangre Azul, the ship only provides an estimate of where Minarete could be located. This is because the fuel emissions from the organic ship is minimal, and a lot of data is just carbon emission byproducts. After they all get a little nostalgic, they activate the tracker on the ship. It shows that Minarete's current trajectory is on course to swing around a Bawaku. All of this work just to find out that it is exactly in the same location where you left it. Womp womp. This is also where the Chimera Corps disbanded. Seaman wonders if this is Hugh's way to bring the Chimera Corps back together again. Back at the Themis Observatory, which happens to be in Jaburo, Aishwarya and Bob receive the coordinates from the team on the Sangre Azul. At Sweetwater, Arlette complains about Char destroying the DJ. During this complaint, we learn what mole suits she has made for Char. The Gelgoog R, the Jiang, and most importantly, the Hyakushiki. We get a flashback of Arlette looking at the remains of the mobile suit. She and her team were the ones who tracked down the Hyakushiki remains. Of course, no one was in the cockpit and the black box was removed after Quattro disappeared during grips. She and Danton did the only thing they knew how to do, start a dry cleaning business. However, they eventually learned that Char is still alive and they got pulled back into helping his cause. Aishwarya, Bob, and the PMC Themis team on the ground analyze the data and are able to pinpoint the exact location of Minarete. Aishwarya is excited to head back into space. They sent an encrypted version of the data down to Earth, but now that they have the exact location, they're going to deliver it directly. Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense, but let Aishwarya go to space. Look at how happy she is. As important as this is, the data means absolutely nothing to anyone that isn't Char or Gop. It is, after all, just random ship coordinates. This is the first time Jacobius' team is transmitting encrypted messages into Earth's atmosphere, as his focus has been always on Earth. Oxner points to Luna 2 and says they are the ones that we should be worried about. Meanwhile, on Luna 2, Ingrid's Gundam is being equipped with old Xeon bits. These are Lala's bits. The Red Gundam isn't the first one to use these bits, apparently. They also don't have charging pods, so these bits are a one-time use. Gop comes over to Yazan and Ingrid and informs them that they noticed a signal being sent out towards Jaburo. They are already working on tracking where the signal came from and where Minarete is. Yazan has a moment and says, "Hey man, what if you use these funnels and control them with a joystick?" Bro, that's not how Psychomu tech works. Oh no, the psychopath Yazan from Zeta is starting to become the dum-dum Yazan from Double Zeta. Meanwhile, Rimia is testing the Vertex Testarossa. Each pilot gets a Vertex designed to their needs. This one is for Johnny Ryden. Ida tells Rimia that she is a mighty fine mobile suit developer. Bawaku is currently a mess. Remember, this is after Hammond rammed access into it, and after the Titans renamed it the Gates of Zidane. They think that they could use Delphi to help them out. Delphi is the name of the planetarium-like navigation program that is hiding Minarete. They try to get as much cartography data as they can on the current area. Hugbald is sending a bunch of his finest security men to help deliver the mobile suits along with supplies. Rimia says this is on a whole different level and is a dream come true. See, I said last week her skills are being floundered at FSS. The Vertex Xanthos is ready for testing, and the Kurinos is good to go. Hugbald notes that they handle all security in-house. Companies on the level of Anaheim Electronics doesn't outsource the transportation pipeline. They are always transporting secret documents, even secrets within the government. This absolutely can't be compromised by a third party that isn't properly vetted by Anaheim Electronics. Like military power, transportation and data control also play a huge role in the current economy. AE wants a piece of every pie. Ludwig provides Hoover and Led intel on some of Char's mobile suits, including the Bawu. Ludwig thinks that this is a clue left by Char, and wants to use this as an opportunity to test out his ship's new Nemos. Hoover looks at Led and wonders what he is thinking. If Oxner gets a hold of Astaroth, he might just reset the entirety of the universe. He says that he has grown quite fond of this world, and if he has to, he will destroy Astaroth himself if he must. As Led walks out, Hoover says to himself that he worries that he may one day become Johnny Ryden. He says that he too likes this world, but it is nothing more than an endless dream. Ugh, dude, I feel you. I am approaching middle age and I have to do this for another 40 to 50 years? Let's wrap this up already. It is time. Oxner wonders if Hoover talked to Led, as he will be the key to all of this. He asks what will happen if he gets too close and it activates. Oxner says then we will know the outcome of this war, as though he seems to want this outcome that he's being very vague about. Remember, Commander Hugh, Johnny Ryden, and Asia are the only 3 people whose biometrics will unlock Astaroth. But Oxner wonders if their biometrics will even work, as much of their data, specifically Asia's data. Oxner mentions Hugh Kelvin's name. Hoover thinks it is a shame that they can't use his biometrics now that he is gone. Oxner hints that he might not be, however. They meet with Hugbald and thank him for helping out. He reminds them that this is all just business to him. This is Anaheim Electronics. We hit all 4 quadrants. They go and brief the entire army that Oxner has assembled, along with Chimera. There are 2,704 FSS crew members, along with various PMC Themis members helping out. On top of that, there are many Anaheim Electronics security guards. Their mission is to do everything in their power to protect Minarete. This is an officially sanctioned mission by the Federation, unlike the battle at Jaburo. Ditcott mentions that Oxner is serious this time. Oxner also has the die that we saw him use earlier in this series. This seems to be a gamble from the old generation. Dice gamble, dice. Do you get the metaphor? Meanwhile, at Luna 2, Ingrid is testing the bits on her heavy Gundam. Gop is informed of new intel from AE. Remember, those sneaky bastards are always working both sides. He goes to meet with Captain Kikone, the captain of the Blanc rival. Back at Sweetwater, Danton delivers a message from Char to Arlette. She is stressed out about finishing up testing, but all Char seems to care about is if she makes the unit red. No one but Char seemed to have learned the 3 times normal speed hack, apparently. As she bosses the mechanics around, Danton flashes back to Char, asking him to promise that he will look after Arlette. He promises Char, and as a sign of trust, he shows Danton his face. Outside of Sayla, this possibly might be the first Char mask reveal. He thinks to himself that he is no good at babysitting. Out in space is a team of Neo-Zeon remnants, and Isaac spots Oxner's fleet on the moon. Ludwig in his Musai is trying to draw out the remnants. He launches his Nemo team. The Isaac tries to dump their recon data. Remember, Isaacs have data pods that they could dump so friendlies could come by and pick them up later. However, the mobile suit is surrounded by the Nemo team. They tell them to get out of their mobile suits, but they sig that Zeon and try to attack. All 3 Nemos fire on the Isaac, killing the pilots. The Nemo commander hesitated, and it almost cost him his life. Ludwig's team spent the last decade underwater, and they are still trying to get their bearing in space. Gop meets with Commander Constantine. He was the commander on the fleet outside of Compay Island that said screw this and bailed from the battle. He is happy to be summoned by Gop because it is rumored that he takes care of you and your family even if you die. Gop instantly changes the mood of the room by wondering why he was there in the first place. He says that higher-ups were at Compay Island, and they always are assigned a security fleet. Constantine realizes this isn't a meeting where Gop brings you into his inner circle. This is a meeting where Gop is going to blackmail you. Uh-oh. However, it isn't too serious. He wants Constantine to escort the Blanc rival, and Gop is going to join him. You are a coward and good at running away from battles. We might need you to run away. Char tells Horst Harness that he is going to capture Astaroth so he could destroy it. Horst says that he is afraid that the Federation may end up using it on the colonies. He believes that there are people within the Federation who still believe in the idealism of Basque Ohm. He goes to address his growing newborn Neo-Zeon army. Their battle at Compay Island was one of their first as a new army. He tells them of their mission to take down the Chimera Corps. Amongst the people is Resin Schneider from Char's counterattack. If she's here in UC-90, then what is she up to during Moon Gundam? Gop is on board Constantine's ship while Ingrid escorts them in her mobile suit. One thing I noticed is that on Earth, Gop always has a cigar in his mouth. Now that he is in space, this motherfucker is vaping. Vape life. Gop wants to actually experience the front lines while he still can, which is why he involved Constantine. He was at the Battle of Odessa, but he wasn't a frontline general. He was always the logistics guy. I like this moment because Gop is walking with the team because he knows Ingrid is watching. Once they get to the lower level where Ingrid can't see, Gop says, "I'm tapping out," and instantly sits. I think this might be the most we saw him walk, actually. She is able to find him and tells him not to go running off. She heads out to prepare for battle. How are they talking to one another? Yazan launches in his Vasuki Custom Mark II. His 2 wingmen, Valenstein and Kawase, are still rocking their Gem Nightseekers. The Blanc rival and escort Salamis head out. The Gelgoog vertices are being prepped. On the Nikaya, the Chimera Corps get a special briefing. Ditcott informs them of the debris caused by the Gates of Zidane incident. They don't want anyone to follow their tracks, so he suggests they split up the fleet. The Nikaya and Chimera will act as the front line. Their Salamis ships, along with PMC Themis, will act act as a distraction. They are going to board and let the engineers do their thing. Siemens' team in the Chimera will act as the escort for Minarete once everyone is on board. Since this is an official mission, they can also get support from the Orbital Defense Fleet, which consists of 18 Salamis ships. Dicot says that he has a bad feeling about this mission, but if they make it back alive, he won't complain anymore. Yeah, I call bullshit on that one. Amaria tells Ashwarya to look after Rimia for her. Yazan notes that Ingrid is getting better. They are running training exercises. Valenstein and Kawase try to surround her. She unleashes the funnels, but Yazan is able to get in close and attack with his beam saber. He says that any old type could read her like a book. They head back to the ship. Ingrid is tired of him calling her princess. He says that he will stop once she is able to beat him. Uma Lightning thinks back to the 1-year war. He was with Hugh Markeen Kelvin when he was killed. He was attacked by what appears to be Astaroth. As he loses his breath, he reminds him of package number 6, which is in his room. Uma thinks that Hugh betrayed Johnny, but he says that Johnny will seize control of everything and usher in the Zabi's revenge. He says that the return of Johnny Ryden will bring forth a new era of Zeon. Ooh, title drop. Back in the present, Uma decides to tell Led and Jacobius instead of keeping it to himself. Resin is getting used to the Baowu, but she says these complex transforming type mobile suits aren't her style. See, now I'm definitely questioning why she isn't in Moon Gundam. Char receives intel on movement on Oxner's fleet. He seems to have a man on the inside. He is onto the fact that this seems to be an officially sanctioned Federation mission. Based on their movements and speed, they could deduce that their ship is on their way to the gates of Zidane. Arlette meets with Char after his meeting. He confirms they are heading back to Abaoku. She tells him that the Traversia will be ready on time. Meanwhile, Uma tells Led and Jacobius everything that he knows about Hugh. They are 5 minutes out from Abaoku. Dicot cuts the engines of the Nikaya. They show Led the key to Minarete. This key looks like a mobile suit beam rifle, but it is actually a laser key. It seems to just send out a password via laser comms to authenticate the Minarete. Minarete has 128 turrets installed, so if they don't use the key, they will be met with a missile barrage. They begin the mission. The Chimera will be guarding Led's platoon. 30 minutes out is the 3rd platoon, where Gerald Sakai's team will be operating as a barrier. Gerald and the captain of the Columbus Yazan joke about the last time they were both here. The two were on opposite sides of the war. Gerald says that their comrades will be happy to see us, referring to their fallen comrades during the 1-year war. Scott looks out into space and says that he hopes Hugh Markeen Kelvin remains dead until they finish this operation. On their way to Abaoku, the Blanc rivals stop at a colony which I assume is Sweetwater because they mention Zeon accents. The captain, Kikonoe, says to the Yazan that they can get access to the colony if he likes, but it is a double-edged sword. They could get help from the colony, but it might alert Oxner loyalists to their location. He says to just leave it to the former Zeon soldiers they just sent in. Inside the colony happens to be Gaius and Phileas, who are undercover. Gaius mentions that Phileas looks good as a lady. This isn't the first time he dressed like a girl, as he did the same when he was fleeing Side 3 post-war. They meet with a contact at the cafe. This happens to be a former family friend and employee of Phileas's family, but he was way too young to remember. Phileas is a part of a Zeon royal family, similar to Glimmy and all those other royal assholes. He informs them that there is a resistance group forming within the walls of this colony. Most people chose to follow their new leader. He is referring to Neo Zeon and Char. They want the 2 former Zeon to join them. He tells them to meet at the docks at midnight for further details, and he refuses to give Phileas his real name. Back on the ship, they are informed of the situation with Phileas and Gaius. Yazan is curious of who they are meeting with. Jacobius, Uma, and Led approach Minarete in their Gelgoog Verex. Jacobius is in the Vertex Xanthos and Uma in the Kurno. The Vertex Xanthos has the 3-kind scope like Jacobius's former Gelgoog. It also has a hyper mega launcher mounted on the backpack, and the same sniper beam rifle he is accustomed to. There doesn't seem to be any significant differences between Johnny's Testarossa and Uma's Kurnos, so this is one of the rare times we will take GBO2 data into account. It uses the Gelgoog beam rifle and the Drayson's giant bazooka. The rifle also has a beam bayonet attached for melee attacks. It can attach a missile pod on its backpack, and it has a Vulcan pod system. As they reach the ship, the Minarete activates its anti-aircraft weapons. It fires on the 3 Gelgoogs. Jacobius moves into action and begins sniping. Oxner, Hoover, and Dicot look on at Minarete. It is just as they left it 10 years ago. Meanwhile, the Neo-Zeon ship, the Meretsker, is wandering close to the Minarete. I think last time we said they were close to FSS, but they have actually been wandering around Abaoku this whole time. They inform Char back at Sweetwater. He asks Arlette what she thinks of the situation. She goes, "I don't know, man." Char says, "Abaoku it is." She didn't even say anything. He and Neo-Zeon prep to join the battle. After Jacobius does some sniping, he whips out the laser key and fires at Minarete. It It disables the ship's defenses. As Char and his forces leave, Kikonoe and the Blanc rival follows them. Yazan and his team prep to launch. Constantine and his ship will follow behind. They just start following Neo-Zeon? I assume Gaius and Phileas' intel were about Char and Neo-Zeon taking off towards Abawaku. Why was Yazan so curious? He knew it was going to be Char. Weird moment, but I'm also translating this from Japanese, and I suck at Japanese, so I might be missing something. Constantine talks about opening a bar after all this is over. Oh man, don't say that. That means you're most certainly going to die. Kikonoe pops back up in the comms and reminds him to run away if the Blanc rival goes down. The Nikaya and Chimera move in closer to Minarete. The Gelgoogs land and move in. There's very little air on board as the ship suffered a lot of damage during the Battle of Abawaku. That is when Jacobius tells Led that during the battle, the Chimera Corps broke into two factions. As the war was lost, the team was split. Asia wanted to go to Side 3, but Hugh Marquine Kelvin wanted to head towards Axis. Both sides wanted to take Minarete. A civil war broke out during the battle. Remember, the Chimera Corps is at Abawaku, but they aren't fighting the war. They're doing their own thing. Jacobius and Uma went to take down Hugh, while Asia used the key to deactivate the Grimoire, which is the name of the onboard computer controlling the biological ship. Jacobius says this is the last known coordinates of Asia. They open the door to see the whole of the ship ripped apart. It seems that Asia threw Johnny into the airlock and self-destructed the ship on her own. After that, Uma began a rebellion once he found out about Asia's death. Led can once again see Asia in his memories. New Year's Eve, UC 0079. Emma and Cristobal see Uma, who returned to the ship. He is cold and vacant after killing Hugh Marquine Kelvin. Emma suggests that they don't tell him about Asia just yet and perhaps have Johnny Ryden say something to him. Uma is informed of the issues with his Gelgoog, but he is spacing out 15 minutes until they launch again. One thing to note is that the group that split from Chimera goes by the name Hydra. Hydra is also the name that Siemens, Meyer May, and Ganem currently go by in the present. Ingrid comes up to him and asks if he was the one who killed Hugh. She said that he chose to fight by Johnny's side. Uma asks her what she plans on doing once this war is over. She doesn't know. She isn't even human, and they are property of Zeon. Considering cloning is forbidden, she thinks that they will be disposed of or experimented on if the Fetties get their hands on them. I guess Ingrid is not just a cyber new type, but a clone. One thing we do know is that she doesn't have too long to live. She was in stasis previously in the manga to show how she extends her life. He tells her to run away, but considering her condition, she wouldn't live too long on her own. Besides, she finds the Chimera home, and the people on board her family. Uma says if that is the case, he will protect the Chimera to ensure her survival. He decides to go to Hugh's room to see what he is talking about. He enters with caution, even though the door was unlocked. When he enters, a message plays for him. He tells him to take the package. It is the package number 6 that he mentioned before his death. He grabs package number 6 and heads back to his mobile suit to prepare to sortie. He places it in a duffel bag and tells everyone that he is just carrying extra sidearms in case things get ugly. He asks for a sitrep from the bridge. They are not to engage and act as an escort ship for other ships fleeing. Johnny is gathering the rest of the team, a job usually done by Asia. Once Ganem returns, Uma is to launch. Jacobius has left Minarete, and Ganem's squad is 15 minutes out. Uma wonders why Johnny is in charge organizing the team. That's a job for Asia. They are retreating to Side 2, which is one of the rare fleets that aren't going to Side 3 or Axis. He looks at a picture of Johnny, Asia, Ingrid, and himself. He asks the bridge if he could get a hold of Asia. Unfortunately, he asks the bridge, who gives him the coldest response possible to this bad situation. They sternly tell him that she was killed in action. Now get the hell off the line. The bridge thought that he already knew. He goes pale and silent. A mechanic tries to help him out. He asks if Ingrid knows, but they haven't told her yet. She can't know. She asks her to visit him real quick. Ganon is 5 minutes out. She floats over quickly and asks what he wants. He tells her that he will never abandon the Chimera. She wonders what he is planning to do with this bag, as he is acting strange. She says that he might just have to take matters into his own hands. Ganem's team has returned. Uma has clearance to launch. He pushes Ingrid away and begins launching. Ingrid tries to get the mechanics to stop him as he is acting suicidal, but he launches. We return to UC-90. The vertices are moving through Minarete. Uma still has the same photo that he was looking at in UC 0079. They make contact with the Nikaya once they get inside. Uma now wonders if he could treat the Nikaya in the same way that he once treated the Chimera.
Family.
The communications officer on the Nikaya tells them where to go. He says that she is really cute while not realizing that the comms are still open. She heard him say that. He tries to save face by asking her out when he returns. Jacobius tells Uma to leave the hard work to the adults. Emma and Siemens move in to protect the ship. Even Emma treats Uma like a little kid. However, as Uma, Led, and Jacobius move out, she says that he has very much become an adult. The former Abawaku sector. Ensign Cole of Le Mans is scouting the area. I assume this team is a part of the Federation support squad. He notices there is something moving in fast. He asks the ship to identify itself. It moves past them with great speeds while others begin taking out Ensign Cole's support team. The Nakia notices the attack. They notice a team of Bawoos. It happens to be Resin and Neo Zeon. The mobile suit that sped by quickly is most certainly Char. Led tells the 4th patrol team to pull back, while the 1st squad will take their place. Ditkat says that someone is watching them. Oxnard gets into communication with the Luna 2 base commander. Char gets video footage from Resin, who went ahead, which means that Char wasn't the person who flew ahead of Resin last time. It was just one of her squad mates. He gets into contact with her. She is amazed to be talking directly to Char. He tells her to continue monitoring the area. One thing to note is that Resin isn't the commander of her squad. She's just a lieutenant right now, but Char's communicating directly to her. He contacts Arlette in the hangar and asks her if the mobile suit is ready. It is a little early, but she is sure she can make it work. Char heads to the mobile suit deck to prepare for launch. He tells Captain Lorenzo to gather around the outer perimeter. The Blanc rival spots Zeon ships. They too will head to the outer rim of the battle while the mobile suits move in. Yazan and Ingrid prep for launch. A mechanic tells Yazan that by adjusting the shape of the combustion chamber and using a new propellant, the output has increased by 100% compared to the original, but he has to be careful about the output. Yazan launches in the Mark II and Ingrid in the Heavy Gundam with the burst liner. Arlette tells Char that his new mobile suit's joints were provided by Granada and reinforced by Doga type units. The limiter hasn't been removed, but the max output has been increased. She knows that he will try to max it out and go 3 times normal speed. There wasn't really any time to test this, however. He muses about the higher-ups like Horst Harnest, who just approved the budget for this and refers to them as ordinary people. Remember, Horst is trying to push him away from being a soldier and towards being a leader. Arlette tells him that he has 7 funnels along with a new type of Psychomu system. This, of course, is a Psycho frame-based cockpit. He and Danton launch. He launches in the new DJ Traversia. The MSK-008S DJ Traversia is a data collecting mobile suit designed by Arlette Almage. The data for this unit will go on to inform the Sazabi. This is built off of Char's damaged DJ. It also uses similar binders used on the Sturm Diaz, which greatly improves the MBAC system. It also has a Psycho Frame cockpit, which is brand new at this time. Weapons include 6 funnels, the Yak Doga shield, a pair of beam cannons, a beam rifle, a beam pistol, and a beam Naginata. The generator will go on to be used in the Yag Doga. Danton launches in the Sturm Diaz. Resin and her team are waiting for Char to make a move. When she notices something, it is the Blanc rival team. Ingrid is able to sense something through the debris field. Yazan tells Valenstein and Kawase to not hit any big asteroids or their location will be revealed. He tells Ingrid to be patient and not rush in. But once they pick up something on the radar, he suggests that they move in towards Minarete. Even Ingrid is starting to think that they should play the stealth game while in the debris field. Little do they know that Yazan knows of a secret path. They spot Resin's team. The sensors on the Mark II are quite strong and are able to pick up Neo Zeon through the debris. He sends the data to his team. Ingrid is the first to move in. Like Yazan, Resin is similar in that she is an old type that seems to be able to keep up with new types. She is able to spot Yazan's team just by the change in light. However, she doesn't want to chase them into the debris field, as she is still waiting for Char. The Nakia notices Yazan's team is coming in very fast. They alert the mobile suit team. Dicot and Oxner wonder who is going to attack first. Gerald Sakai and his team get intel, and they begin building a defense. The Gelgoog Vertices are informed of Vasuki's team moving in. The 2nd platoon leaves Minarete. They will be guarding the stern. The engines must be protected at all costs. Char is informed of Resin's movements, but he lets her handle it as he thinks that she could handle anti-airship situations easily. He wants to head directly to Minarete, but he plays it safe and delegates first. He seems to be trying to take more of a command role than his usual hot-headed self. Char wants Danton to defend the Musaka class. Neo Zeon's 2nd company moves out in the new Gyaradogas. The commander tells the team that maintaining formation with Char is most important. Their team heads out to Minarete. Yazan reflects back to the Battle of Abaoku during the 1-year war. We don't know much about Yazan during the 1-year war, but this comment suggests that he was indeed at the Battle of Abaoku. Ingrid asks if he's ever been here since the 1-year war. He tells her about when he was here when it was renamed the Gate of Zidane. This was during the final battle in Zeta Gundam. Ingrid says that it is crazy that the Federation tried to move this thing. He says that it was a crazy experience caused by crazy people. Ingrid has been asleep until recently, so she asks Yazan to tell him some old war stories if they make it out of this. Yazan and the Vasuki team come upon empty space. There's a trail in the debris field which acted like a road when the Federation moved the Gate of Zidane. This is why Yazan was so confident about moving through the debris field, unlike the others. He knew of this path. They're able to speed up and shortcut their way to Minarete. He wonders why he didn't stumble upon this during grips. I guess he doesn't know it is a constantly moving ship. Kawase and Wallenstein split off from Yazan and Ingrid and go search in the debris field. He will light a signal when they need to regroup. Resin spots the Gundams. The Vasuki team moves in to attack FSS, but she is uncertain of GOP's allegiances. She assumes they are FSS. She sends the intel on the 2 Gundams to Char's team. He notices the Gundam Mark II. They are certain this is GOP's team. Char says to focus on eliminating FSS first, then focus on Minarete. Hearing of the Gundams, he got excited by the thought that Amado may be here, but he won't be showing up. Oxner gets intel on the 2 Gundams and wonders why GOP only sent 2 units. He wonders if GOP and Neo Zeon are working together. They too don't know where allegiances stand, but they have to buy time. They tell the Chimera team, it is time for the Gelgoogs to take action. Led's first platoon heads out. Suddenly, something in Hugh Marquine Kelvin's room activates. Responsible person? I think that should probably say responsive. Oh, Japanese people trying to do English. Ditkot tells the Neo Zeon forces to cease activity and leave this airspace immediately. He represents Nikaya as the Earth Transport Union Army. The Chimera gets sent a message to support the Nikaya if the time comes. The ship moves out. Led gets permission to engage in combat from Ditkot, as Yazan is taking out what looks like power modules on the asteroid. He spots a sniper. They're forced into fighting short-ranged. Yazan is going to move in so Ingrid could beeline it to Minarete. They're going to set up a backdoor inside Minaret's control system so GOP and his men can gain access. That is when Char and his men approach Minarete. The first thing that Char notices is the sniper in the area. He gets into contact with Resin, who is to support his team. Char fires and hits a giant asteroid, getting the attention of Yazan. He notices that this is a new prototype and tells Ingrid that he will clean up this mess. Jacobius is sniping from a distance and notices the increase in firepower. Led notices Heavy Gundam and wonders if it is Ingrid. Jacobius will keep formation while Led and Uma rush in. They're going to need to call in a second platoon for help. The 2 break formation. Char and Yazan engage in battle. Char is trying to draw out whatever is coming their way. That is when the Gelgoog Verex makes it to the battlefield. Yazan starts getting off at all of the strong opponents on the battlefield. Strong men. Led chases Yazan, while Char fires on the 2. Uma takes on Ingrid. She says that he is still annoying even after all these years. Behind the 2 fighting is the burst liner. It fires on Uma. He realizes that she must have a Saikomu system as she is controlling it remotely. Ingrid wonders who built their Gelgoogs. Uma says that he will prove that his Gelgoog Verex is stronger than Led's. The 2 continue their fight. Ingrid fires the burst liner on a downed Magellan in the debris field. He says that she should be fighting as Johnny's wingmen instead of against them. She remembers Uma telling her that he will protect his home, the Chimera. She wonders what he plans on doing to Minarete. We flash back to Uma with package number 6 acting weird and Ingrid noticing his odd behavior. She says that 10 years ago, he started caring about her feelings, but he never tried to understand how she felt when he started the rebellion. Kikonoe and the Blanc rivals spot the Nikaya and notes that it is Oxner. The captain knows that Oxner was once a colonel under the ranks of Revel's high command. He hopes that Oxner will have some sense to at least work together with GOP to prevent Char and Neo Zeon from getting their hands on Minarete. The enemy of my enemy type of situation. However, they don't know that FSS is composed of mainly old Zeon. They spot another fleet approaching. He asks Constantine and the escort team what he thinks. He goes, I don't know, man, I'm just a chauffeur. Kikonoe starts talking cryptic and wonders if they should abandon the Vasuki team and join up with Oxner. Constantine is just trying to stay out of as much trouble as possible, but he wouldn't be able to leave his comrades if he were him. Kikonoe says that perhaps Constantine should just turn around and head back to Kompe Island. But then he says, nah, what the hell is this conversation? I think I'm losing something in translation here. Kikonoe begins moving into a Baoku airspace. Kikonoe sends out Phileas to launch in his mobile suit. Simmons, Emma, and Cristobal receive an image from Led. It shows them Char's new model. Cristobal says that mobile suits give him a bad feeling. They have simulation data on Char's new mobile suit, but they know that simulation data is nowhere on the level of the real thing. Simmons decides to go help out. The reason they lost to Char last time is because they fought alone. They need to work together. the ship will retreat and act as a supply depot. Emma mentions that the beasts need to work together, referring to Uma, Johnny, and Jacobius as the manifestation of the mythical Chimera. Siemens, Gannon, and Myers will go help them. He says that they might not survive. Myers tells him that if one died, another takes its place. Remember, they are the Hydra team. If Johnny's team is the living manifestation of Chimera, then Siemens' team is the living manifestation of Hydra. They move out. The Nikaya gets a call from Siemens' team. They're moving in to help out the first platoon. They need help against the Red Comet. They connect with Jacobius and tell him about Char, but he doesn't have eyes on him yet. He will let them know if he gets sights on them. He hopes the second platoon can protect Minarete. Dicot has heard rumors that Char has been forming an army of Neo-Zeon remnants. Oxner says this is no rumor. This is all true. In fact, the Federation knows about them and plans on using its new Special Forces unit to handle them. Dicot knows he is talking about Londo Bell. It's about time. Welcome to the fucking party, Londo Bell. We've been here for a while. Where have you been? To an old type like Oxner, he sees that the future of military strategy is in new type versus new type. Dicot thinks that there is a chance to stop Char Aznable here and now. They should take that opportunity. Oxner says the proverb, "He who chases after two rabbits catches none." This is a quote by Confucius. He then says the quote from Genesis, "I did not bring you anything torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself." What this hipster is trying to say is that sending anyone other than the Chimera Corps to handle Char is sending them to their deaths. The Chimera Corps is literally bred to handle Char Aznable. The 3rd platoon will help out the Chimera, while 2nd platoon heads out to the front lines to help out the 1st platoon. Oxner notes that it is moments like this that makes him miss being a military man. Dicot tells the old man to watch his heart. Oxner decides to tell Londo Bell that they found the location of Char. Dicot wonders if it is wise. Uma tells Ingrid that she needs to come back with them, but she is on a different path. The boosters on the burst liner are slowing her down, but then she realizes it is all her. At the end of the day, she is still a kid as she was placed in stasis for years. Even Uma is now an adult with 10 more years of experience than her. Uma chases Ingrid into what was once the resupply depot, now nothing more than debris. Before being destroyed, they scattered fuel tanks everywhere. Uma ignites some of the fuel tanks. She realizes that she looped back to Yazan and Char fighting. He wonders why she came back here. Ingrid goes, "I don't know what's happening anymore." Uma says that she is the only person he wants to fight with, and convinces them to help them fight against Char. She is Chimera after all. Uma goes to toy with Char while Ingrid begins attacking Neo-Zeon. Yazan wants to know what she is doing. She says that she is Chimera, and this is just her instincts acting. This turns on Yazan like the psychopath he is. He says that you two are a psychopath like your uncle Vasuki. She has earned his respect and shows her by calling himself Yazan instead of Vasuki around her. She is now the alpha. Yazan really is like a dog. He goes to help Uma, still playing with Char. Char recognizes the speed of the Gelgoog Verex. Led fires on Char while Uma goes in close. Led, Uma, and Jacobius have to work together. Aishwarya and Bob make it to Minarete. She says that it looks like an ark. The hangar is as big as a small town. This ship was designed to develop mobile suit technologies. After the door closes behind their ship, it will take 10 minutes to depressurize. Scott and Aishwarya will go to Hugh Markeen Kelvin's office, where she will crack his computer. Bob will stay at the port and act as support for Aishwarya, in case she needs something to procure during her hacking. This facility seems to have everything they will need. Aishwarya is obsessed with Char. Anytime he shows up, new technologies follow him. The Psychomu, the movable frame, and soon the Psycho Frame. Char, in many ways, helped push technology forward in this universe. She goes on a rant about how technology isn't bad. It is the people who use it, and those who use it for evil aren't engineers. For those who create for evil purposes, it is up to engineers to turn that technology into use for good. Humans have stopped evolving and allowed for technology to evolve in its place. People should bear the burdens of the technology they use. Humans still have the freedom of choice to not use said technologies. They still have that power. Pressurization has ended. It's time for them to begin. Scott bows to her and calls her Denshi no Hime, or Electronic Princess. Enemy attacks begin to reach Minarete. The Nikaya has to help the ship. Dicot contacts Hoover and tells him that Char is tearing through the front lines and making their way towards Minarete. He is on standby on the deck. Once they get Minarete's engines going, it is over. They just have to hold out until then. Dicot regroups the defensive forces around the stern of Minarete. They plan on placing the ship 300 meters below it. Led and Char continue fighting. He tells Uma to stand back. He and Ingrid come rushing in though. Yazan tells her to watch out for his funnels. Char gets behind Ingrid, but Yazan comes in to save her. Uma needs to resupply, but he says screw it and scavenges some weapons on the battlefield. Here is another example that you can't just grab any weapon. You have to authenticate with it. I think he even upgrades the firmware on the fly. He thanks Rimia for the ability to do this with his mobile suit. He is resupplied and good to go. Jacobius informs them of incoming mobile suits. That is when Siemens and the Hydra team comes in to help. The vertices can focus on Char. They will come help once they cleared the battlefield. Ingrid and Yazan lose sight of Char. In Hugh's office, it took Aishwarya 7 minutes to break into the computer system. She is able to open a secret door. Scott says this is the chamber of the mythical beast. Rimia enters into the main facility of Minarete to find mobile suits and mobile armors. Rows of them. Aishwarya unlocks the door and Scott enters. He tells her to get control of the center console. Then lock everything except navigation and life support systems. Scott wants to prep some of the mobile suits Rimia found in case they need to use them. Aishwarya tells Scott that the console is activating on its own. She looks and finds a log file of its activation 45 minutes ago. That was about the time the battle began. Sensors activate on Minarete. They aren't for navigation. They are monitoring the battle. It's looking for something specific. But what is activating it? The Gelgoog spot Ingrid's Gundam. Led and Yazan agree to work together until they take down Char. Char awaits the beast heading towards them. They begin firing at Char. As that happens, the Minarete begins attacking them. A program called Echidna begins running. Speed, agility, and even the timing of the firing of everyone's beam blasts. All of this data is being collected by Minarete. This Echidna program seems to be running off a different OS from the ship. The operating system is called Harmony. Char calls Yazan a beast. Not how like young people say it, as in he's a savage animal. While he fights Char, Ingrid tries to focus on his funnels. Yazan tries to capture Char. Ingrid rushes in with her bits. Char fires on her, but Uma blocks her, doing damage to his Kronos. Led rushes in and takes on Char. Rimia tells Scott that it is Echidna that is monitoring Led's battle data. It is looking for Johnny Ryden. It is most likely going to launch something if it finds Johnny Ryden. As the battle continues, the computer is focusing more and more on Led's vertex. The incoming battle data is exponentially growing as well. Char is pushing Led to his limits. Scott wants Aishwarya to try to stop the ship from capturing the data, or at least slow it down. Led gets the upper hand on Char. The computer is now 100% sure that he is Johnny Ryden. Half are surprised, and the other half are like, yeah, of course. He sees Hugh in his mind, saying that Johnny was always superior to him in every way. He wonders who these thoughts are. Jacobius protects Led while he has a mini freakout. Hugh tells him that he is the key, and he will return when he is needed. He apologizes for betraying the Zabis. That is when Minarete begins activating. Char 2 realizes that Astaroth is activating. Yazan meets up with Valenstein and Kawase. The Chimera retreats while the Nakaya distances itself from Minarete. Oxner knows that Led is Johnny, but Hoover already knew. Minarete has hundreds of bits. Char wonders if this is how the virus will be deployed. Minovsky particles increase. Kikonoe allows Phileas and his team to head out. The Blanc rival and Gop's fleet prepare to attack. No one can contact Johnny. He is still passed out. The bits from Minarete begin launching. Oxner says that they can't let it scatter throughout space. They need all forces to help stop it. Jacobius takes aim and fires at one. The bits are overwhelming. The attack systems are activated on Minarete. Minarete also begins evacuation procedures. This is no longer a capture mission for Neo Zeon. They will now try to destroy it. He tells his team to focus on the containers with the bits. Char still doesn't want to leave Astaroth in the hands of the Federation. He says if the world is destroyed by this, then Amra won't appear. It's all about getting his boyfriend to fight him at the end of the day. That's all that matters. Ingrid and Uma help Johnny, who is still passed out. They open his cockpit. She says if this guy is Johnny, his hatch code will be the same as in the past. She is able to open it. She knew it was him all along. UC 0079, Minarete. Ingrid and Uma head out in Gelgoog cannons. Asia watches as Johnny comes in. She mentions that Ingrid is the first attempt at growing a fast-growing embryo by Zeon. This is why they can't age. Mass cloning attempts are underway. The fact that these children exist is something that Asia has come to terms with, but they don't know of the past. They look towards the future. So Asia thinks there is hope for humanity. As the two talk about the cloning process, we learn that Asia wanted to use Johnny's DNA, but Hugh decided against it and chose Asia as the donor. Asia's DNA lives within the two cyberneotypes, based on the flashbacks of Johnny and Hugh. This decision by Hugh seems to be out of jealousy of Johnny. After Asia's death, There was no one to watch over Ingrid's condition. He tells her that the reason Uma left is to start a rebellion. She wants to go after him, but she has to go into stasis. He says that the two of them will fly again. In the present, Johnny wakes up. He was able to keep his promise to her. Now it is up to him to show them the future that Asia believed in. A cosmic glow comes from the mobile suit. Char realizes that this is an enhanced human. He's seen this before from Zeta Gundam. Char thinks of Camille. The bits and the remaining containers start to move. Everyone begins evading. Led/Johnny gets in contact with Aishwarya. He wants her to find Astaroth's control systems firing the weapons. Whatever systems that were set in place by Hugh are separate from the weapons controls. She needs to find that as well. She says, "Do you know who you are talking to? I could do it in 2 minutes. Bitch, I'm Aishwarya." Led then tells the Nikaya to prep the Hyper Mega Launcher. This is the same weapon that Quattro used in Zeta. Resin spots the Nikaya moving out. Before she could shoot it, a mobile suit approaches from below. It is Phileas and the Garibaldi. Gaius is with him. He goes to look for Yazan's team, while Phileas handles business. He messes up Resin's transformation system, and the mobile suit separates. The Nikaya dodges an attack. They prep the coordinates and launch the Hyper Mega Launcher. The Gelgoogs go pew 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 on the bits to clear a path. The High Mega Launcher launches. Johnny grabs it and rushes towards Minarete. Aishwarya found the weapons control system. Johnny takes aim and fires this beast of a cannon on Minarete. Everyone has cleared out of the ship by now, but on Hugh's computer are the words, "Did you have fun?" The ship goes down. 5 days later, Minarete is planning on being sunk out in Jupiter with the help of PMC Themis. In 3 months, a helium mining vessel is heading towards Jupiter, and he is planning on heading out with it. At the Garden of Thorns, Oxner meets with Gop, Hoover, and Ditcott. They discuss the Minarete being sunk in Jupiter's hurricanes. Anaheim Electronics is fronting the bill on this mission. Oxner's team technically won, and Gop concedes to that. He thinks that Oxner should become president when he steps down in 3 years. But this is more of a curse. Gop says that he should use this time to travel the world that he tried to destroy. Oxner's plan of resetting Universal Century also failed. There was damage, however. A new colony inside 5 was destroyed due to Astaroth, but luckily it was empty. Oxner says maybe one day he should visit that colony too to repent. Hoover wonders what will happen with FSS. Gop wants to keep the agency going. Ditcott laughs because during the Dark Ages there was a man who tried to control information. He is referring to J. Edgar Hoover. Hoover is named after J. Edgar Hoover, so the irony is palpable. I mean, I guess you wrote it to be that way, bro. Back in Sweetwater, Char tells Horst, "Oh well, I guess we gotta drop an asteroid on Lhasa." Rimia is heading to Luna 2 to help with an engineering investigation. But Uma talks about how Johnny is the ultimate rival, and he will do anything to beat Johnny. This inspires Rimia to stay with FSS. Led tricked Ingrid to being a test pilot with FSS as well. Ditcott and Hoover look out at the test team. They realize that Rimia is the one that held these people together. Led and the gang are still planning on heading out to Jupiter in 3 months. Rimia begins a new MSV test evaluation. And that will conclude Mobile Suit Gundam MSV-R, The Return of Johnny Ryden. This was such a wild ride. It has almost something for every generation of UC that people will enjoy. I put this one up there with the plot to assassinate Giran. In many ways, this was a sequel to the plot to assassinate Giran. However, I feel like I missed a bunch of things at the end. Like I'm pretty sure package number 6 was left by Uma when they first boarded the ship, but I completely missed the purpose of it. I think it played a role in the activation. I think? There is also an offhand comment of Rimia staying behind when Johnny goes to Jupiter. Why isn't she going with him? I don't know why that annoyed me the most. Where's the Lavu? There is so much going on in this final battle. It is a tactical mess that I want to return to eventually, as a lot happened here. Now that we have finished the return of Johnny Ryden, we can finally continue our coverage of Shin Matsunaga. But that will do it for now, new types. Remember, Asia could have been a mother to Johnny. Peace.